The Kai Dragon Emperor and Hui Dragon Emperor brace for impact as Yun Qi's dark storm splits the sky. But the real storm is just beginning, and even the Devil Master might not be ready for what Kai Wyo has planned next. Drop a like and subscribe to see who bends first. The Kai Dragon Emperor and Hui Dragon Emperor, Kai and Yinger replied. Yun Qi thrust his arms forward. His right hand surged with darkness profound energy, and his left hand howled with bluish wind. The black and blue profound lights came together to form a dark storm in the sky before sweeping toward the west with incredible speed. No one dared to touch, much less stop the dark storm conjured by the Devil Master himself. When the dark storm approached its target, it suddenly split in half and rushed toward the Kai Dragon Emperor and Hui Dragon Emperor like a pair of roaring devil dragons. Although the Kai Dragon Emperor and Hui Dragon Emperor bore less pressure than the dragon gods, their willpower had become drastically weakened, and they couldn't circulate more than 20% of their usual power, even when they pushed their souls to the point where they were shredding themselves. After the Blue Dragon Emperor stopped withholding her power, they couldn't even squeeze out a complete line of insult or pleading, much less retaliate against her. A compassionate person, especially one who had refused to compete against the world for 100,000 years, could be absolutely terrifying when they finally resolved themselves to violence. Since the moment she attacked the Emperor Kai dragons and Hui dragons, each of her attacks was more ruthless than the last. The exploding ice, the corroding cold, and the deep blue that seemed to contain a sea of rage and madness terrified even her own people, much less the Kai dragons and Hui dragons who suffered them. It wasn't long before over half of the Kai dragons and Hui dragons were gravely injured or dead. The Kai Dragon Emperor and Hui Dragon Emperor themselves had their profound veins and internal organs completely corroded by ice energy. The only reason they were still alive was because they were born as dragons. The Blue Dragon Emperor was going to stop the sudden approaching dark storm with a screen of water when she suddenly detected Yun Qi's presence. She hastily backed away despite not knowing what Yun Qi was planning to do. Whoosh! The two storms grabbed the Kai Dragon Emperor and Hui Dragon Emperor violently before tossing them toward Yun Qi. The two Western region god emperors drew black scars across the sky before they crashed heavily into the ground in front of Yun Qi. The darkness profound energy entangling their bodies shackled their souls as well. It caused both the Kai Dragon Emperor and Hui Dragon Emperor to writhe in pain. When they met Yun Qi's icy gaze, though, all their struggles, voluntary or involuntary, abruptly came to a standstill. Technically speaking, they were all rulers. However, they were like lowly maggots compared to Yun Qi. The Devil Master found it beneath him to waste a single word or even a single gaze on these two maggots. So he raised his foot and brought it down with brutal strength again. The darkness profound energy surrounding his feet crushed the Kai Dragon Emperor to bits before he even had the time to squeak out a plea. A loud crack later, he was gone just like that. Up until this point, every god emperor in the history of the god realm had more or less died of old age. Forget the god emperors, even the death of a star god or a moon god was usually shocking news that stunned the entire god realm. But today, these god emperors were gathered together like grasshoppers and killed en masse. Yun Qi was about to crush the Hui Dragon Emperor next when Yan Wu's shivering, hateful voice suddenly entered his ears. "Your Magnificence, if I may, I would like to execute this scum myself." One only needed to look at the blood covering her entire body to know the extent of Yan Wu's injuries. Despite being empowered by calamity and misfortune, she still moved like a disabled person. Even so, she gritted her teeth, endured her injuries, and rushed toward the Hui Dragon Emperor with all her might. The White Rainbow Dragon God, the Myriad Manifestations God Emperor, the Kai Dragon Emperor, and Hui Dragon Emperor were the four main culprits who had driven Yan Xianxia into sacrificing himself. 3 of the 4 scum had already perished, but she still wanted to kill the last one with her own hands, if only to fulfill her last filial duty as his daughter. Yun Qi withdrew his dark energy a bit and shot Kai and Yinger a glance. Then he kicked the Hui Dragon Emperor in the stomach, destroying his last remaining bit of vitality and draconic breath in the process, and sent his half-dead body flying to Yan Wu. Red light erupted from Yan Wu's eyes as she channeled almost enough Yama Devil energy to exceed her greatest limits. Instead of wielding the Yama Devil spear, she chose to stab the Hui Dragon Emperor with her own 2 hands and flood his entire body with her hate-filled power. The Hui Dragon Emperor's eyes bulged unnaturally. The last image imprinted on his eyes was that of his Hui dragons being slaughtered by black blood. If only this was all a dream. Boom. Yan Wu's energy erupted once more, and an even greater explosion finally wiped out his final consciousness and shattered the proud body that had lived for tens of thousands of years. Dragon blood drenched Yan Wu's arm and splashed her entire body. For a moment she stared blankly at nothing in particular until the mist in her eyes turned into uncontrollable tears. Did you see this, Royal Father? You haven't died for nothing. It is your final will and power that protected the Devil Master until he returned. It is you who brought us the new life the Northern Divine region had thought would never come true for countless years. You are my and the Yama Devil's eternal pride. She didn't know when Xianxia had walked up to her. After he conjured a ray of pure darkness and wiped clean the dirty blood covering her face, her clothes, and her skirt, he started tending her injuries gently. Yan Wu turned around dumbly and stared at Xianxia with blurry eyes. "Don't let this filthy blood tarnish your body or soul," said Xianxia. The monstrous cold and blackness that dominated his voice earlier had been replaced with indifferent but definite gentleness. Your father must want to see a better daughter and a better Yama Devil realm in the afterworld. After he said that, he raised his hand and summoned a pitch-black cauldron. It was the devil artifact of inheritance of the Yama Devil realm, the Yama Devil Nether-Crossing Cauldron. 6 distinct dark auras were floating inside the cauldron right now. One of them was none other than the Yama Devil aura her father used to carry. One of the Yama Devil origin powers had passed away with Tian Guhu forever. Xianxia had taken the Yama Devil Nether-Crossing Cauldron from the 3 Yama ancestors. Even Yan Xianxia, the god emperor of the Yama Devil realm, had only held it a couple of times in his life. As long as Xianxia owned the Yama Devil Nether-Crossing Cauldron, the Yama Devil realm would never be free from his power. Today, he returned it to Yan Wu himself. This meant that the Yama Devil realm was granted true freedom and independence when the new world and future arrived. After Yan Wu accepted the Yama Devil Nether-Crossing Cauldron, her cheeks began trembling, and she bit her lips so hard that it drew blood. When she finally put away the artifact of devil inheritance, she finally lost control of her emotions, threw her arms around Xianxia, buried her head into his chest, and cried. Xianxia's eyes widened in realization. He instinctively leaned backward and raised his hands into the air. But Yan Wu's sobs were so heartbreaking that he ultimately couldn't find the heart to push her away. At number %, whatever good feelings Kainai Yinger had a second ago were immediately replaced by towering fury. She turned her head away and uttered through gritted teeth, "Bastard!" On the other side, Yan 1, 2, and 3 were shaking away the dragon blood on their hands after killing the last withered dragon and dragon god. When they looked in Xianxia's direction, though, their eyeballs nearly fell out of their sockets. "Motherfu, does this mean we'll have to worship our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter like our ancestor from now on?" Contrary to their comedic appearance, the ground beneath and behind them was littered with dragon flesh, blood, and bones. All 5 withered dragons and 7 dragon gods had died without a shred of dignity or class. A wild dog that was beaten to death on the streets probably had more dignity than them. The reputation the dragon monarch, withered dragons, and dragon gods had cultivated for 1,000,000 years was annihilated in a single day as well. Assuming that some dragon god descendant somehow slipped through the net and lived to tell the tale, they would surely do everything in their power to bury this shameful history. The battlefield to the west side was far, far bloodier than even the battlefield of the Yama ancestors, however. If someone thought that the northern region profound practitioners only had 1 day's worth of anger and hatred to vent, they would be dead wrong. No, they had an entire 1,000,000 years' worth of despair, grief, pain, hatred, and more to vent upon their enemies. The difference between a profound practitioner who was suppressed and not suppressed by Xianxia's dragon god image was like night and day. What should have been an even battle at least was turned into a completely one-sided slaughter. A battlefield turned into a slaughter ground. Their dark blood boiled with tyranny as they reaped the dragon sovereigns, whose power had made them fall into despair a moment ago, like wheat. They knocked the dragon sovereigns and master dragons to the ground and brutalized them with their darkness profound energy. Some used their bare arms and even their teeth to tear their victims to shreds. The Hui Dragon's forces and Kai Dragon's forces weren't faring much better themselves. After losing their god emperors, they had lost even their last bit of conviction. Standing before them were the demon-like northern region profound practitioners. Coming behind them was the blue dragon's ruthless backstab. In a sense, their downfall was even worse than the dragon gods. It wasn't that they couldn't accept death, but dying in such a sorrowful fashion where they couldn't even struggle was a completely different story. They set down all their dignity and begged for mercy with all their might. But all they got for their troubles was a complete lack of hesitation and a merciless, blood-drenched claw. The myriad manifestations realm was the only force present that could mount some sort of resistance against their attackers. But they were too busy being savaged to death by the mighty Killins. More than half of these powerful divine masters that were normally so hard to kill died in less than 15 minutes. Dragon blood was spilled every breath, every instant of this war. It dyed the sky of the ruined god realm dark red. As the air grew thicker and thicker with blood, it eventually felt like they were breathing dragon blood, not air. Meanwhile, Long Bai lay alone as his brethren's blood-curdling screams filled the air. He was the dragon monarch, but he was left alone like an old shoe in a drain that no one wanted to bother with. Long Bai had lived for 350,000 years, so 24 hours was but the snap of a finger to him. Right now, though, every instant felt as long and arduous as 1,000 years of suffering to him. He had had to watch his ancestors, the withered dragons, be slaughtered to the last. He had had to watch his dragon gods die horrific deaths. Even now, he had to hear the dragon sovereigns and master dragons howl at the top of their lungs. He would rather die right here and now than suffer this torment on his soul and body any longer. No one came to kill him, though, not even the nameless mortals that he normally wouldn't even deign to look at. The Xianxia he hated to the bone, though, was floating high in the sky and accepting the world's praise and respect right now. Not fair. I, the dragon monarch, had to cultivate my profound energy, heart, and soul for 350,000 years before I could become the monarch of the primal chaos. But he, a 30-year-old junior who has lived less than a 10,000th of my lifetime, has defeated me, shamed me, and even destroyed the dragon gods who ruled the world for 1,000,000 years. The heretic god's inheritance, the devil emperor's inheritance, the dragon god's gift, and even Shenzai. Why is he so easily able to obtain everything that another person would fail to get even if they staked everything they had? Why is this heavenly way so unfair? Why is this fate so laughable? Why? He somehow managed to struggle to his feet, but it lasted only an instant before he dropped to his knees again. He couldn't even straighten his back. His injuries were far worse than they appeared from the outside. His internal organs and profound veins had been consumed by darkness or scorched to ashes by the flames. If his life force wasn't as abnormally strong as it was, if he was anyone else, he would have died 1,000 times over already. In the sky, after Yan Wu gradually stopped crying, she finally realized what she was doing and moved her head away from Xianxia's chest. Too panicked to even wipe her tears, she bowed her head deeply and apologized. "My apologies, Your Magnificence." "Yan Wu didn't mean to." Xianxia shook his head and smiled at her. "It's good that you are able to shed tears." After Yan Wu wiped her face with her palm, she declared with renewed determination, "Don't worry, Your Magnificence. We of the Yama Devils aren't normally this fragile. Yan Wu swears to you that the Yama Devils will regain their former glory in less than 10,000 years. We will become the sharpest and most loyal devil blade you will ever have." It was both a promise and a declaration of the Yama Devil realm's future. "Very good," Xianxia nodded. "I look forward to it." After saying that, he turned around and ordered all the Northern Region Profound practitioners in a low tone. "Finish it!" Using up both profound energy and soul energy at the same time while using a profound handle as the carrier was naturally far more exhausting than just using up one's soul energy. Although his total soul energy and his mastery over the dragon god's divine soul had far surpassed what it used to be thanks to almost 3 years of dual cultivation with Shui Meiyin's divine stainless soul, it still wasn't something he could maintain for too long. It was the strongest soul suppression in the entire world after all. He was starting to feel a bit dizzy, but of course he couldn't show weakness as the Devil Master. The Northern Region Profound practitioners immediately gave up brutalizing their opponents and focused on killing their opponents instead. The speed at which the Dragon Sovereigns, Master Dragons, Kai Dragons, and Hui Dragons died immediately went up drastically. Considering what they were going through, though, they would probably embrace the merciful release with both arms. After placing Shui Yingyu on top of the barrier, Shui Meiyin appeared next to Xianxia and pressed her small hands against his back. His senses immediately cleared up after his soul was soothed by her divine, stainless soul. "Don't worry, I can handle this perfectly," Xianxia said comfortingly. Now that he felt better, he teleported in front of the Dragon Emperor of Absolute beginning next. Without a word, the Dragon Emperor's eyes flashed white, and a half-translucent barrier carried Xianxia gently to Xianxia. Xianxia extended his arms and carefully embraced her. Many years had passed since that fateful day, but Xianxia's appearance hadn't changed in the slightest. She was still as small, delicate, soft, and cute as the day she first saw her. She looked like a sleeping kitten in his arms. Her injuries weren't very serious, but she was unnaturally weakened. She had clearly fought to the last bit of strength. He stared at a deathly pale face and tightened his embrace bit by bit. A long time later, he finally looked away from her face and said, "I will not forget the favor you've done for me, Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning." More than half of the core of the Dragons of Absolute Beginning had perished in today's battle. The Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning himself had gone far and beyond to protect Xianxia. Both were great favors he wouldn't be forgetting any time soon. "It is fine," the Dragon Emperor of Absolute Beginning said. "Just treat my master well and all is well." "Amen," Xianxia replied lightly. Xianxia was his wife. There was no need to make a show about something so obvious. On a related note, he could probably remove the devilish imprint the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor had implanted in the Dragons of Absolute Beginning using the eternal calamity of darkness. However, Xianxia decided against mentioning it after just a very brief moment of hesitation. The battlefield slowly started to grow quiet. It was no longer reverberating with miserable wails filled with despair or the heartrending sounds of bodies being broken apart. Only the sounds of heavy breathing and the occasional howl of wrathful vengeance could be heard. The bloody mist that hung in the air was no longer growing thick. Instead, the metallic tang of blood was slowly being dispersed by the wind. Xianxia turned around with Xianxia in his arms. The highest-level massacre in the history of the God Realm had thankfully come to a close on this blood-soaked ground. In fact, it had ended in an inconceivably fast manner. All of the Dragon God Realm's venerable withered dragons, dragon gods, dragon sovereigns, and master dragons were dead. The Northern Region Profound practitioners had used them as an outlet to vent their extreme rage, so most of their bodies had been torn to pieces. There wasn't a single Hui dragon or Kai dragon alive either. Ironically, it was the myriad manifestations' divine masters who had endured the longest. However, they were boxed in on all sides by the Northern Region, the Killins, and the Blue Dragons in the end, and there wasn't a single survivor among them. It was at this time that the dreadful figure of that gigantic dragon silently disappeared from the skies above them. The skies and the earth had finally stopped shuddering at that moment, and it was as if they now had an opportunity to breathe. If anyone happened to arrive at the 10 Directions deep sea realm at this moment, they would never be able to believe that the small mountain of flesh and bones belonged to the God Emperors and divine masters of the King's realms of the Western region. It wouldn't matter what race they were or what level of power they possessed. It was simply too unbelievable a tale. The destruction of the Southern Sea God Realm in the span of a single day had already shocked the universe to its core. In the same short amount of time, this battlefield, which had originally been filled with enough draconic might to trample the entire universe, had been turned on its head by what seemed like a flip of Xianxia's hand. It had instead become an event that would echo through the ages, the biggest dragon slaughter that the God Realm had ever seen and ever would see. Besides the Blue Dragon clan who had been pardoned for now, there was only one survivor among the dragons of the West long by. The Devil Master would decide his death, so no matter how much of a frenzy the Northern Region Profound practitioners whipped themselves into, they still would not touch a hair on his head. There was also another person who was still alive. Bang! A torn and tattered body that was so misshapen that it barely even resembled a human was kicked toward Xianxia. Xianxia immediately turned to look at the crippled person. His face had been completely disfigured, his limbs had been shorn off, and many of his bones could be seen beneath his flayed flesh. He was so disfigured that it was impossible to tell who this person was based on his current appearance. However, Xianxia instantly recognized that faint and weak thread of energy wafting from this mangled lump of flesh. It was actually Zhou Zhuzi. Not only was he still alive, he was even conscious, and those half-opened eyes of his still seemed to be able to see with some clarity. When he was kicked in front of Xianxia, his body spasmed violently as a scratchy, gurgling sound came from his throat. Xianxia furrowed his brow as he stared at him. the energy around his body gently stirring. Even though Zhou Yuzi had already been reduced to the most miserable state possible, it still wasn't enough to erase the hatred in Yun Qi's heart. Yan 3 had been observing Yun Qi's body language, so he hurriedly stepped forward and extended a wizened hand. "Master, this old slave can help you protect." Yun Qi barked out the words, "Get lost." Yan 3 retreated quick as lightning. Yan 1 scolded him in a low voice. "Has your brain been reduced to mush? You dare to actually touch one of Master's women?" "Not even with our profound energy?" Yan 3 asked in a rather indignant voice. "Of course not," Yan 1 and Yan 2 replied with a strange symmetry. Yan 3 lowered his head in shame. Kai Waiao slowly walked over and said in a languid voice, "This person's fate should be decided by both you and little Keijai, so I decided to leave him alive when I found him." Oh, that's right. All of these wounds were inflicted on him by little Keijai, and his last 6 guardians all died by her hand. When our adorable heavenly wolf grows fierce, she is quite frightening. I would advise my Lord Devil Master to be careful in the future. As Yun Qi looked down to stare at Keijai, he understood just how deep her hatred of him was. Woo, woo, woo. Zhou Yuzi tried desperately to widen his one good eye to stare at Yun Qi. His throat moved up and down violently as pained grunts spilled from his lips. Virtue will lead to eternal peace. Evil will bring the carnage of a devil god. This was the short prophecy that had come from the heavenly mystery 3 elders that had finally allowed him to harden his heart. However, the eternal heaven god realm had been slaughtered. The moon god realm had been destroyed. The southern sea god realm had been annihilated. And the cornerstones of most of the king realms of the western divine region had been cruelly shattered in the span of a single day. The current Yun Qi had already grown to such a terrifying extent. If he wanted to, he could probably obliterate all life in the universe. All of this had happened in a few short years. All of this had started the moment his palm had sent the evil infant Jasmine flying out of the primal chaos. Before he had struck that blow, Yun Qi had just saved the world, and Jasmine had used all of her might to seal that crimson crack in the wall of primal chaos. He had also publicly sworn that he would never disturb Yun Qi and the evil infant Jasmine, both of whom had decided to leave the god realm and retire to the lower realms for good. If he had not struck that single blow, the swiftly growing Yun Qi might have very well become the world's mightiest protector, one who could quell any calamity with the palm of his hand. Someone who would fit the line, "Virtue will lead to eternal peace," to a T. No, I wasn't wrong, I didn't make a mistake. Everything I did for the sake of this world. What that palm strike of mine destroyed was my own honor, but I did it to rid the world of its greatest threat. I didn't do it out of selfish ambition, I did it for the world. How could I have been wrong? As for Yun Qi, he was possessed by darkness and mercilessly slaughtered star realm after star realm. In fact, he was the one who brought down this huge calamity on the entire god realm. It's now clear that his innate nature was that of a devil. I only helped him awaken to his nature earlier than expected. I didn't do anything wrong. As his mind rambled in a chaotic muddle, Yun Qi, who had been staring at him coldly all this while, finally made his move. What surprised nearly everyone was the energy that was radiating from Yun Qi's body. It wasn't the life-stealing dark, profound energy. Instead, it was the sacred light of his holy light, profound energy that shone from his body. Light, profound energy flowed down from Yun Qi's body to cover Zhou Yuzi and swiftly repaired his fatally wounded body. After that, Yun Qi turned around and summoned a small eddy of wind to levitate Zhou Yuzi in the air before he tossed him to Yan 3. Destroy all of his meridians. A sentence of extreme cruelty passed from Yun Qi's lips. But do not let him die. Light, profound energy would preserve his life, but the destruction of all his meridians would make him wish he were dead. Yun Qi did not spare Zhou Yuzi another glance and started slowly walking toward Long Bai. It almost seemed as if Keijai had sensed Yun Qi's aura in her dreams as her breathing started to regulate itself. Her pale white face also slowly began to regain some of its normal pink hue. Long Bai continued to struggle. Even though he wanted to die, there was no way he was content to go like this. In fact, he no longer spewed dragon blood when he coughed. He was actually coughing up bits of his scorched and fragmented internal organs instead. Yun Qi's foot fell. Bang. A huge explosion shook everyone's souls and squeezed their hearts like a vice. That stomp had turned Long Bai's internal organs into powder. Even the divine miracle of life would not be able to save him now. Your era has ended, Yun Qi said as he looked down at Long Bai with cold eyes, his foot firmly planted on his shattered chest. On account of the slight grace that you showed me in the past, I will give you one last chance to say something before you die." The divine light in Long Bai's eyes was swiftly fading, and his spiritual senses, which were slipping away from him equally fast, could no longer even sense his own body. However, for some odd reason, his bleary and tired eyes could see Xianxia with acute clarity. Long Bai's lips suddenly started curving upwards. He was actually smiling, and his smile was dreadfully sinister. His boundless pain and despair had suddenly morphed into a distorted glee as he started grinning like a demented madman. Kai Weiao's devil soul had been pricked by this sudden change. She swiveled around to stare at Long Bai, a big frown on her face. "Xianxia," Long Bai used all of his strength and will to utter those words with much difficulty. "Do you really think that you've won? Heh, heh, heh." What seemed like laughter came from Long Bai's mouth, but it was filled with such pain and warped glee that it twisted one's heart. "In truth, Shenzai, she—" Oh no, a feeling of unease suddenly sprang up in Kai Weiao's heart. However, it was at this moment that a beam of blue light streaked down like a world-ending meteor, cutting open a dazzling icy line through the space which it passed through. As the icy light dazzled past them, Xianxia slowly coalesced into existence, holding Long Bai's neatly severed head in her hand. That ugly and sinister smile was fixed on Long Bai's blood-matted face. His lips trembled and twitched for a few more moments, but no sound issued from them. "So cold," his final thought echoed in an empty world. A world with no light, a world filled only with cold and despair. This was just like what had happened to him more than 300,000 years ago. His enemies had shattered his limbs and blinded his eyes before throwing him into a barren wilderness, leaving him to die in darkness and despair. Then an incomparably warm light suddenly lit up that deep abyss of despair, and within the light, he saw a celestial figure that would thrust him into an endless dream, a goddess who would ensnare his every thought. Shenzai Shen, Zai. However, that ephemeral light did not descend upon him again, even as the darkness itself started to fade away into the distance. The dragon monarch's aura disappeared from this world forever. His open eyes had lost all of their color. Even though he was staring into the sky, he would no longer be able to produce a single ray of light in this universe that he had ruled for hundreds of thousands of years. When he was king, he had never dreamed that he would come to such a miserable end. Xianxia raised his head to stare dumbly at Xianxia. He had already decided that Long Bai would die by no other hand than his. However, at the very last moment, someone had snatched his head away. If it had been anyone else, he would definitely have flown into a huge rage by now. Unfortunately for him, that person just so happened to be Xianxia. "Maz," he unwittingly uttered a word in shock, but he swiftly changed it. "Xianxia, you? He was the one who killed me back then." Xianxia sheathed the Snow Princess sword. "So it's only right that I take revenge for myself." Kai Weiao let out a long sigh of relief as she shot Xianxia a fleeting look of gratitude. Xianxia's methods were slowly starting to resemble that of an emperor's, but he was still far too young, so his experience would naturally be lacking. When faced with people one had to kill, one should never allow them to say anything unless they possessed secrets that had to be extracted before they could die. Because once a person knew that they were going to die to a hated enemy, it was common for them to say the most horrible thing they could think of. As such, Long Bai could have lied that he had raped Shenzai before she died. There was no way to prove it since both of them were dead, but it would have left a soul-piercing wound in Xianxia's heart. The gruesome joy on Long Bai's face showed that he knew that his words would definitely deal Xianxia a huge blow furthermore. Kai Weiao had vaguely sensed that it was very possible that it wasn't a lie that he had come up with on the fly. Right." Xianxia hurriedly nodded his head. The bloody battle had come to an end, and now that he was face to face with Xianxia, whom he had once thought was lost to him forever, he started to feel a bit helpless. Of course, you killing him was for the best. In the back, Yan 1, Yan 2, and Yan 3 felt their hairs stand on end as cold shivers ran down their spines. The spiritual senses of these three old monsters were on another level from most people, but at this moment, they actually sensed an acute sense of discomfort emanating from Xianxia's body. The dreaded Devil Master, who had slaughtered the Dragon Monarch and his venerable withered dragons like dogs, actually seemed to be afraid of this woman. This was the moment that they carved every bit of Xianxia's aura and features into their hearts and minds. Right now, her status in their hearts had instantly surpassed all of the previous ancestors. The gazes they directed toward her immediately contained a deep and fawning servility, even though they were only directed at her back. "NNG, A soft groan issued from Keija's lips. Xianxia immediately bent his head down to whisper, "Keija, Keija." At this time, Kai Weiao's body shimmered and she arrived at the side of Long Bai's head. She silently and furtively released a thread of her nirvana divine soul power and shot it toward the last dissipating wisp of Long Bai's soul. She instantly withdrew that thread of soul energy and read it. It had successfully captured a small portion of Long Bai's thoughts an hour before his death. As she scanned through those thoughts, Kai Weiao's face twitched, but she instantly smoothed her expression. Muxuanian's icy eyes trembled as she shot a glance toward Kai Weiao, but she did not say anything. Keija had not woken up. She merely shifted slightly within Xianxi's embrace as she fell back into deep slumber. Long Bai's death represented the end of an era, the beginning of a new epoch. The profound practitioners of the northern divine region had already gathered behind Xianxi. The moment he turned around to look at them, they had already fallen heavily to their knees, kowtowed, and shouted, "Your Magnificence!" Most of them were either exhausted or heavily wounded, and they were only still chugging along thanks to the second wind given to them by calamity and misfortune. However, this greeting of theirs seemed to be louder and more deafening than any of their previous greetings. In fact, it almost seemed like every northern region profound practitioner had tried their best to tear their own throats with this shout. In the back, the surviving Brahma kings and deep-sea profound practitioners kneeled on the ground. Even further back, the Killins and Blue Dragons also dropped down on knees, trembling with unease and fear. Xianxi nodded his head. "You may rise." However, none of the northern region profound practitioners rose to their feet. Fen Deaki raised his head to look at Xianxi. He took in a few deep breaths before he could finally speak in a quavery voice. "Devil Master, we won, right?" "Yes, we've won." Xianxi gave a heavy nod of his head. Of the 4 king realms of the eastern divine region, 2 were destroyed, and 2 have come under the wings of our devil race. The eternal heaven god realm was bathed in the blood of its denizens, while the moon god realm is nothing more than floating rock and ash. The star god realm and the Brahma monarch god realm joined us, so the eastern divine region has been completely pacified. Of the 4 king realms of the southern divine region, we trampled on the southern sea god realm, cowed the Xunyuan realm and purple micro realm into submission, and had the 10 directions deep sea god realm willingly join our side. As for our largest and most difficult obstacle, the western divine region, all of the divine masters belonging to the dragon god realm, the emperor Kai realm, the Hui dragon realm, and the myriad manifestations god realm have been killed. These 4 king realms now only exist in name alone. They no longer have any power to threaten us. As for the Killins and the Blue Dragons, that short pause caused a shudder to go down the backs of all the Killins and Blue Dragons. They are alive merely at my whim, and I firmly control their destinies in the palm of my hand. Xianxi's gaze swept the entire crowd as he started to speak in a slow and serious manner. Right now, there is no power left in this universe that can impede the progress of our northern divine region. From today onward, from this moment onward, as long as I, the Devil Master, remain in this world, there will no longer be anyone who can malign, insult, or despise the dark, profound practitioners of the northern divine region for no good reason. You, your kinsmen and your clans, your children and your descendants, all of them will completely escape this dark yoke that has been hanging around your necks for 1,000,000 years. You can finally raise your heads proudly and walk in the light. It is now the era of the northern divine region, and we will be in control of the god realm. The northern region profound practitioners had not yet settled down. They had just emerged from that bloody and terrible battle as the most unlikely of winners. Their minds still dwelled on the slaughter of their kinsmen and the dramatic reversal that ensued. As such, they were still filled with violent bloodlust, and their minds were still fogged up by a dense blood mist. However, the Devil Master's pronouncement had finally brought everything to a close, their violent malice dissolving into hot tears that spilled down their cheeks. Their worn-out heartstrings finally relaxed as the murderous bloodlust soundlessly dissipated along with the profound energy they still unconsciously held. They could no longer even smell the blood wafting in the air. Thud. Many of them even sank limply to the ground as the strength went out of their bodies. However, they hurriedly got to their knees once more as they deeply bowed their heads and assumed a low and humble posture. Their shaking eyes were filled with a worshipful reverence that they would guard zealously for the rest of their lives, a worshipful reverence they would pass on for 1,000 generations. Fendayaki slowly closed his eyes as he kowtowed deeply to Xianxia. His every word was accompanied by tears as he said, "The strength of the Western Divine region far outstripped all records we had of it. It was beyond our most dreaded nightmares. If the Devil Master did not exist, our Northern Divine region may very well have been trapped in that cage of darkness forever. We may never have had a fighting chance to reverse our fortunes. The magnanimity of the Devil Master will never be forgotten and can never be repaid." Fendayaki pressed his head against the ground for a very long time. As the former imperial teacher of the Burning Moon God realm, he was filled with the wisdom that only a vast amount of experience could bring. However, at this moment, he simply could not find words that could fully express his gratitude and emotions for this blessed moment. This destiny-altering battle had gathered the strength of the various divine regions, and the Western divine regions had been exceptionally terrifying. After all, their very bodies still bore the testament to their might. Without Xianxia, the Northern Divine region's pitiful and sorrowful fate would not have stopped at a mere 1,000,000 years. It would have continued on for all time, until the day that the Northern Divine region naturally collapsed. The words Darkness Profound Practitioner and Devil Person would also have forever become bywords for sin and filth, something carved into the minds of all the people of the world. As such, Fendayaki's words struck the heart and soul of each and every Northern region profound practitioner. All of them kowtowed deeply to him once more before they shouted, "The magnanimity of the Devil Master will never be forgotten and can never be repaid. The magnanimity of the Devil Master will never be forgotten and can never be repaid. The magnanimity of the Devil Master will never be forgotten and can never be repaid." Even though they were clearly weak and exhausted, their shouts had grown louder with each repetition, until the very air above the deep-sea divine region echoed with their voices. In the back, the Killing Emperor slowly raised his head, and it was filled with surprise and admiration. Their cries didn't contain a single bit of the flattery and fear he had long grown accustomed to. Instead, every word seemed to echo out from the bottom of their souls. It was nearly impossible to repay someone for saving your life, so how could anyone possibly repay the debt of saving such a vast divine region, all the lives contained within it, and all the lives that would come with each successive generation? Right now, even if Xianxia were to command them to immediately give up their own lives, the Killing Emperor was convinced that all of them would immediately end their lives without a single hint of regret or remorse. This reverence and loyalty that permeated their very bones. As fellow emperors, neither he nor the Blue Dragon Emperor could ever truly obtain such a thing. Xianxia made a small gesture with his fingers, causing a very small and thin sound isolation barrier to surround the sleeping cage. Another wave of energy spread out from his body and hushed all the voices. "The fruits of this battle are not due to my work alone, nor did I save the Northern Divine region by myself. We all did, together. Each and every one of you." Xianxia let out a soft sigh and said, "Long Bai's early return, the World Dragon City, the venerable withered dragons, these were all unexpected variables that we could not possibly account for. However, I, as the Devil Master, did not make sufficient preparations for these possibilities before I entered the eternal Heaven-Divine realm. This was my fault as Devil Master, and it brought down severe consequences on us all." Kai Wao's eyes narrowed imperceptibly. Naturally, none of these were Xianxia's fault. Any unexpected variable wouldn't have the word unexpected attached to it if they could be predicted. All of the changes that occurred in the Dragon God realm were ones that even she could not predict. In fact, if she had not managed to burrow a thread of her devilish soul into Zhou Zhuzi's, the results of today's battle would have been even more catastrophic. However, Xianxia's words were the most appropriate words for this moment. After all, there was never an emperor who did not require eloquence or the hearts of his people. The eternal Heaven-Divine realm is a unique world that follows its own special laws, so it is normally something that can't easily be affected by the outside world. However, the power of the current Eternal Heaven Pearl has nearly dropped to zero, and it was a huge ask to even open it for 3 years. As such, it was incredibly unstable, and any external attacks could have easily caused it to collapse. The result would have been catastrophic. Xianxia swept his eyes to the west and looked at the ground that was stained in devil blood. All of these things were probably already told to you by the Devil Queen. That also means that all of you clearly had enough time to flee, yet you all chose to stay behind. In this doomed situation, you did not act for the northern region or yourselves. You acted solely for my sake. Every word was filled with emotion that had come from the bottom of Xianxia's heart. When he mentioned the word, you, he was not only referring to the people kneeling before him, he was also referring to the ones who had died while protecting him before his return, however. They were no longer here to hear those words, no longer here to see the bright light that the northern divine region now firmly grasped in their hands, the light they had been thirsting after for generations. If you had not desperately defended me until the very last instant, the eternal Heaven-Defying realm would definitely have collapsed. I would have been tossed into an unknown place via the chaotic slipstreams of space, and in the worst-case scenario, it could have ended with my death. This wasn't an exaggeration whatsoever. In fact, He Ling was the one who had personally told him these things. Every ounce of your strength, every drop of your blood, every sacrifice made by one of your kinsmen ended up saving me. To be exact, they also ended up saving the northern divine region. As such, the one who changed the northern divine region's fate and rewrote our history books was not me alone. It was all of you as well. When Xianxia had left the eternal Heaven-Defying region, Long Bai had practically been within arm's reach of the eternal Heaven Pearl. As a result, every attack, every drop of blood, every life sacrificed to the cause had gained valuable time for Xianxia. All of it had been necessary, and as it turned out, none of it had been in vain. All of your names will be carved into the history of the northern divine region. That is the special honor and glory that belongs to all of you. And in the future, it is something that all of you must protect together. All the northern region profound practitioners felt their devilish blood surging through their veins and hot tears sprang to their eyes. As Xianxia said those words, darkness energy erupted from his body and lifted all the northern region profound practitioners to their feet. Rise! Now is not the time to dwell in your feelings. There is an even more important task ahead of you. Go and gather the bodies of our fallen kinsmen and prepare them for burial. Do not even miss a drop of their devilish blood. We must erect a monument for them in every land in the northern divine region, one that will endure forever. Fen Deaki walked to the head of this assembly and deeply bowed to Xianxia once more. Tears streaked his old face as he said, "We solemnly obey the words of the Devil Master." After that, the northern region profound practitioners dispersed back to the battlefield. They followed the lingering traces of darkness profound energy toward the bodies of their fallen kinsmen. The cruel living conditions of the northern divine region had inevitably caused many grudges and resentments to be formed between the star realms within it. However, at this moment, if anyone found the body of what had once been their most hated enemy, they did not feel even a single ounce of joy in their heart. Instead, they bent down and wrapped them in the most gentle, profound energy they could produce, and their only fear was that they would harm the body in any way. After they had fought in this bloody battle for the northern divine region's future, all of their past resentments had already dissolved into dust. Xianxia turned to calmly look at the deep-sea profound practitioners. The 10 Directions deep-sea realm had not betrayed them, and to be honest, he was very surprised. It was at this moment that Kang Shishan strode forward and prostrated himself before Xianxia. He yelled in a loud voice, "This sinner Kang Shishan kowtows to the Devil Master. I congratulate the Devil Master for using his world-shaking divine might to rid the world of these calamitous and wicked dragons. You saved the northern divine region from their cruel fate and saved the God realm from the tyranny of the dragons. This is truly the fortune of the world, the most joyous event under heaven." There were only 3 deep-sea sea gods left, and the deep-sea divine envoys had been reduced to 15 people. Kang Shishan's dramatic performance, where he was practically on the brink of shedding tears, caused them to deeply bow their heads in shame as their lips twitched constantly. Xianxia cast him a sidelong glance. "You actually managed to survive." To him, Kang Shishan was someone devoid of all kingly dignity and comportment, someone who would go in whatever direction the wind blew. As the second strongest god emperor of the southern divine region, he not only did not lend a helping hand when the southern sea god realm was being destroyed, he even immediately submitted to Xianxia and proved his loyalty by striking a vicious blow against Nan Wansheng. This had also forced the Xuanyuan god emperor and the purple micro god emperor into grudging capitulation. When the wind was blowing in one's favor, such a person would be a very Yuzelf lackey. However, the moment things started getting rough, he should have immediately thrown his lot in with the dragon monarch just like he had with Xianxia. At the same time, he would viciously backstab the northern divine region as proof of his loyalty. As such, before he entered the eternal Heaven-Defying realm, he had gone out of his way to tell Kai Waiao to be careful of Kang Shishan. Surprisingly, when he emerged from the eternal Heaven-Defying realm, they weren't just in an unfavorable situation. They were practically a step away from death's door, but Kang Shishan was actually still on their side. This was exactly the opposite of his immediate groveling capitulation when he was faced with imminent danger the last time. He shot a fleeting glance toward Kai Waiao as he wondered exactly how she had gotten Kang Shishan to behave. But perhaps he had been wrong about Kang Shishan all this while, or perhaps it was a combination of both factors. Reporting to the Devil Master. Since this Shishan is merely the Devil Master's loyal dog, how would I dare to die without the Devil Master's express command? Kang Shishan had not even hesitated to proudly shout out those words which completely stripped him of his dignity. Xianxia knitted his brows together before he turned to look at Kai Waiao. Kai Waiao also chose this moment to speak. She said, "Even though God Emperor Shishan committed a great mistake back in the day, he did indeed perform many meritorious deeds in today's battle. As for whether it can lessen the severity of his crimes," she gently turned to look at Xianxia. "It'll be up to the Devil Master or the Snow Song Realm to decide." A cold light suddenly erupted from Xianxia's blue eyes the moment Kai Waiao finished speaking. A beam of icy energy swirled into existence out of nowhere and explosively shot towards Kang Shishan. As the cold energy pressed in towards him, Kang Shishan felt every hair on his body stand on end. However, he fiercely clenched his teeth and forced himself to remain still. In fact, he even swiftly dispersed most of the profound energy protecting his body. PCHHHT? An icicle that was several meters long pierced his chest and sent him flying. He flew for several kilometers before he was cruelly pinned to the ground. Bang! The icicle that pierced his body ruptured with a loud explosion. Kang Shishan was blasted into the distance once more, his body landing unceremoniously on the ground. Xianxia turned around. She did not deign to attack or even look at him again. The terrifying cold energy had turned Kang Shishan's skin a shocking bluish purple. His entire body shuddered uncontrollably, but he still managed to struggle to his feet. All of his profound energy surged up, but it wasn't to heal his injuries. Instead, he let out a low roar as his right arm swung through the air. The earth-shaking sound of bones being shattered reverberated through the air as he bodily smashed his own left arm apart. He knelt to the ground with his remaining limb, his breathing rough and heavy. After that, he bent his head to the ground and said, "Back then, I used this arm to attack the Snow Song Realm King. If it can appease the Devil Master and Snow Song Realm King's wrath, I am willing to live without this arm for another 300 years. HMPH? Xianxia gave a cold snort. "I would rather you have both arms so that you can serve the Devil Master better." Kang Shishan jerked his head up, a happy and surprised smile on his face. He deeply kowtowed and said, "This humble King Kang Shishan gratefully thanks the Snow Song Realm King and Devil Master for their mercy." Kai Waiao had been watching each and every one of Kang Shishan's actions with cold eyes. After that, she murmured in a soft voice, "He really is an incredible man." Xianxia stared at Kang Shishan from the distance, the murderous intent in the depths of his eyes not completely erased. The surviving sea gods and deep-sea divine envoys helped the heavily wounded Kang Shishan to his feet, strange and complicated looks glimmering in their eyes. If they set aside some of his actions and words, which were so humiliating that even they could not bear to witness them when they happened, the only thing they felt towards Kang Shishan's wild behavior right now was a wild joy, and a deep-seated admiration which surpassed any feelings of admiration they had ever had for him. During this battle, the deep-sea divine region had been reduced to nothing, and many of their sea gods and divine envoys had fallen. However, their vessel of divine power was still safe and sound, and the middle and lower tier of deep-sea profound practitioners had already been dispersed long before the battle began, so their roots had weathered this vicious storm. Even more importantly, Kang Shishan's actions during this battle had ensured that his 10 Directions deep-sea realm had a rather lofty position in this new world, controlled by the northern divine region. If he had gone with the flow of the battle before Xianxia's emergence and thrown his lot in with Long Bai, then he would have shared the fate of the 4 tragic king realms of the West. Still, it must be said that if Kang Shishan had not chosen to fight with them and place all of his bets on Xianxia, the northern divine region might not have had the happy ending it was having right now. Chi Tianli, realm king of the Qilin realm, greets the devil master. The Qilin emperor brought along his divine master Qilin as they respectfully bowed to Yun Qi and awaited their fate. Blue Dragon realm king Qing Que greets the devil master. The Blue Dragon Emperor imitated the Qilin Emperor's words and mannerisms as she bowed next to him, but she didn't seem willing to crown herself with the title of sinner. Her destiny was no longer in her hands, and she had already composed her heart, so she was ready to accept her fate, come what may. Yun Qi had been silently watching the distant northern region profound practitioners clean up the bodies of their kin. It was only after a long period of time had passed that he was finally willing to turn around and look at them. When he turned around, his eyes subconsciously jumped upward as his entire body leaned back. The Qilin Emperor's face was weathered, his skin was dull, and his body was withered and shrunken. This, coupled with the fact that he was doing his best to suppress his God-Emperor aura in front of Yun Qi, made him seem like nothing more than a humble and refined-looking old man. As for the Blue Dragon Emperor, she was bent at her waist in a gesture of respect, but shockingly enough, she was still a half an inch taller than Yun Qi. Whenever a man faced a woman who was taller than he was, it was common for them to feel a strange sort of pressure. The Devil Master of the North was no exception to this rule. Yun Qi's eyes unconsciously wandered toward the lower half of her body. The diaphanous water-blue robes seemed to be playing a game of hide and seek with a pair of slender and lovely jade legs so long that his jaw nearly dropped to the ground. "Kneel," Yun Qi barked out in a cold voice. The Qilin Emperor kneeled down without any hesitation whatsoever. The Blue Dragon Emperor followed after the Qilin Emperor. When the invisible feeling of pressure immediately disappeared, Yun Qi breathed a silent sigh of relief. After that, he gazed at the two kneeling emperors with cold eyes. As Western King realms which had accompanied Long Bai here, the Qilin realm and the Blue Dragon realm had suffered startlingly few losses. From Kai Wao's sound transmission, Yun Qi found out that the two king realms had only lost about a tenth of their forces before Yun Qi had emerged from the eternal Heaven-Defying realm. They had suffered even fewer losses than the mightier Dragon God realm. This was because these two king realms had been taking it easy from the start. Their god emperors led by example, and all of their divine masters fought as if they were hobbled. If not for the fact that they did not dare to offend the dragon monarch, they would have probably fled from the fight the moment it started. After that, they were tasked with killing the divine masters of the myriad manifestations God realm, Emperor Kai realm, and Hui Dragon realm. However, under that peerlessly dreadful dragon god suppression, it was not much harder than chopping up some vegetables, so it was hard for them to die even if they tried. The worst they suffered were some wounds from the retaliation of the myriad manifestations' profound practitioners. Your performance just now wasn't bad at all, and I do ultimately need some proper stepping stones in the Western Divine region. Yun Qi's words were completely cold and cutting. The Qilin Emperor immediately said, "Please do not worry, Your Magnificence. The star realms governed by the Qilin realm and the Blue Dragon realm will all submit to the Devil Master. We definitely won't be involved in anything suspicious. As for the other star realms of the Western region, this old man and the Blue Dragon Emperor will do our best to..." HMPH. Yun Qi cut him off with a cold snort as he slowly raised a palm filled with violent and malicious energy in the air. "Before this, I want all of the people from your clans who have killed a profound practitioner of the devil race in this battle to step forward and commit suicide. If even one of them does not step forward, I will slaughter your entire race." Yun Qi's words were filled with a murderous intent. However, not a single one of the Qilins or Blue Dragons stood forward. Yun Qi's expression immediately turned sinister and dark as a grim chuckle escaped his lips. "Very good. It looks like you want me to personally take action, huh? However, if my hand is forced, the guilty are not the only ones who are going to die." "No. Wait," the Qilin Emperor hurriedly exclaimed. "Your Magnificence, it isn't that any member of our race is afraid of death. It is that none of us killed any northern region profound practitioners. This is because this old man and the Blue Dragon Emperor gave a stern command that our kinsmen were not to kill any northern region profound practitioners in battle." "Heh!" Yun Qi barked out a cold laugh. "How ridiculous. To think that you would actually be shameless enough to utter such ridiculous words. It does sound absurd and ridiculous." Kai Wao's voice floated over the air. "But every word of it is true. If it wasn't, I would never have told you to spare them." "I can confirm that," Kai and Binju said in a dry voice. Even someone like Xianxia was completely flummoxed by this turn of events. Your magnificence, every word that my lord has uttered is true and without falsehood. A purple Qilin bravely spoke up in the back, his voice ringing like metal gongs. Before we arrived here today, our lord gave us the stern command to find an opponent at our level of strength if we were forced to come to blows with the devil race. Moreover, he also ordered us to never deal the killing blow if we happened to end up in a situation where the other party had been pushed into a corner. We were only allowed to let our former allies do the killing. Killing the devil race was a meritorious deed that our other allies were fighting for. However, to us, it was a heavy sin that our lord would surely punish us for, another purple Qilin said. As a result, no one in our race would ever dare to strike the killing blow. On the contrary, we lost more than a few kinsmen to the last desperate strikes of the dying devils. This was entirely out of Xianxia's expectations. Why? He asked the Qilin Emperor as he stared at him intently. The Qilin Emperor let out a sigh filled with boundless sorrow before he replied, "We Qilins have always been regarded as auspicious beasts in this world. As the highest authority of the Qilin race, the supreme beings who ruled over them, we do not dare to stain this beautiful reputation of ours. The things we hate the most are fresh blood from slaughter and slaughter itself. We only hope for peace to abound in the world. We did not dare to offend the dragon monarch, so we could only obey. However, I do not dare to offend your magnificence either. Your magnificence is still young, but you have already obtained the heretic god's power and the devil emperor's legacy. Even though I have been wizened by all of my years, I was still shocked time and again by your deeds. I gradually came to believe that your magnificence truly might have the power to overturn heaven and earth. As a result, even though the forces of the West held an overwhelming advantage, I still wanted to preserve the last chance we had with you. If the dragon monarch won, we would gladly accept his heavy punishment, but if the devil master won, we would have preserved our chance at life." Xianxia narrowed his eyes as he stared at the Qilin Emperor. After that, he chuckled dryly and said, "What a beautiful, preserve the last chance we had with you. You really are a sly old fox, and even the title of Qilin Emperor can barely live up to you." The Qilin Emperor bowed his head once again. "We only seek peace and harmony. We have never had any ambitions for power or dominance. I also have never had anything but the utmost admiration and respect for the Devil Master. I only ask for you to spare our lives." "Peace? Heh, what a cowardly and timid race. So if someone who has the power to overthrow me appears in the future, will you once again bend your knee to them?" Xianxia asked in a mocking voice. "Yes," the Qilin Emperor replied without any hesitation. "It is very hard for our Qilin race to reproduce, so the mission that has been passed from generation to generation is to survive and prosper. As such, we have never abused anyone we have power over, and if it is out of our power, we can only go with the flow of things." The Qilin Emperor immediately followed up. "However, your might is already enough to shake the heavens and the earth. Even someone as strong as the dragon monarch was subdued by a simple flip of your hand. As such, I firmly believe that it is impossible for anyone stronger than the Devil Master to appear in the following generations. Thus, the Qilin race will swear eternal loyalty to the Devil Master. This is the vow I make as the leader of the kings of the Qilin race. The heavens and earth be my witness." Xianxia's gaze shifted slightly as he looked at the Blue Dragon Emperor. "Are you also the same?" The Blue Dragon Emperor replied, "The Blue Dragons have always been a dragon race that protects. Our draconic bodies and might are purely for protection. The Devil Master just needs to do a quick check of my race's history, and you will find that our Blue Dragon race has never been the instigator of any conflicts. Neither have we involved ourselves in any conflicts. Everything that happened to us today was something that was forced upon us. Even killing the Kai dragons and Hui dragons was something that was forced upon us." The unnecessary addition of the words, "forced," shocked the Qilin Emperor so badly that cold sweat immediately broke out on his forehead. But he immediately swallowed the words he was about to say. "Your Magnificence, if we receive your forgiveness, we will be willing to obey any of your commands as long as they do not cross our bottom line. And if you are determined to push us to our deaths, then our only choice will be to fight to the bitter end." The Blue Dragon Emperor's words were cold, calm, and devoid of emotion. In fact, her speech and mannerisms quite closely resembled the Muxuanian of the past. "Little Blue Dragon!" Kang Shishin leaped forward with a roar. "You dare to threaten the Devil Master?" "No, no, no, the Blue Dragon Emperor definitely does not mean that," the Qilin Emperor exclaimed anxiously. It is just that her personality is stubborn and rigid, and she sticks too closely to her principles. If she wasn't such a person, she would not have so willfully held back her strength in front of the dragon monarch today. A blue dragon divine attendant kneeling behind the blue dragon emperor raised her head and said, "Your magnificence! Back when you saved the entire universe, you also saved our blue dragon realm. Ever since that time, our Lord has always felt grateful and greatly indebted to you. Even when your darkness profound energy was exposed to the world, and the other realms were trying to hunt you down, my Lord never changed her opinion of you because of your darkness profound energy. Instead, she constantly rebuked herself for her powerlessness as guilt ate away at her soul. She even sent this sound transmission 3 times during this terrible battle. Pretend to fight, and you must absolutely never strike the killing blow. If your magnificence does not believe me, you are free to search my memories." After she said that, the blue dragon divine attendant closed her eyes and dispersed all of her soul energy. Pa, 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 Xianxia slowly clapped, and each strike of his palms felt like a blow against the hearts of the Killins and blue dragons. Amusing, how very amusing. One race only seeks their own safety and security, and will always leave themselves a way out. One race hates battle and only uses their power to defend themselves, while being extremely stubborn and principled. 2 races who possess neither ambition nor sharpness, yet they could rise to become king realms. Heh! If you did not possess innate talent and advantages that far outstrip the rest of us, I'm afraid that your races would have long since been wiped out. The Killin Emperor bowed his head. The Devil Master's rebuke is correct. However, he was currently breathing a very heavy sigh of relief in his heart, because he had sensed that Xianxia had not been enraged by the Blue Dragon Emperor's words, and his cold and sinister aura had actually started to recede. HMPH, the lives they were living were simply too good, Kai Wao said in an airy voice. If they had been living in the northern divine region. She did not continue, but everyone could sense the resentment that lay behind those words, the resentment that was coming from the Devil Queen of the North during these last 1,000,000 years. The other 3 divine regions had pushed the northern divine region into a desperate and squalid condition. It was only today that they had finally seen a new dawn. So how would they treat the 3 divine regions now that they were the masters? Would they repay hatred with hatred? Or, all of these decisions rested in Xianxia's hands alone. When he was still in the northern divine region, he had said many times that he would turn the 3 other divine regions into dark hells, that he would plunge the people he had once saved into an eternal purgatory of fear, regret, pain, and despair. However, ever since Xianxia made his sudden decision to enter the eternal heaven-divine realm, Kai Wao had strongly sensed that Xianxia's heart had changed, and it was a rather big change. So do we spare them or kill them? Kai Wao asked. The hearts of the Killins and blue dragons rose into their throats. Xianxia turned around to leave as he said, "You decide." When he thought about what had happened at the border of the primal chaos and what happened outside the blue pole star, he remembered that the only god emperors who had not attacked him when he was down were the Killin Emperor and Blue Dragon Emperor, and that was with the dragon monarch present. Once he said those words, all of the tension bled out of the Killin Emperor, and his body nearly sank to the ground in relief. As she stared at Xianxia's back, Kai Wao's jade lips trembled slightly before she said in a slow and languid voice, "You have made a very wise choice today. That choice not only saved your lives, but it saved the lives of every member of your 2 races as well. Carve everything that happened today into your hearts and remember to never ever do something stupid in the future. I thank the Devil Master for his mercy. I thank the Devil Queen for her magnanimity." The Killin Emperor heavily kowtowed toward Kai Wao. Now that the calamity had passed, his body was shaking with relief and gratitude. The Killin and Blue Dragon races will definitely be entirely loyal to the Devil Master and the Devil Queen, and we will obey your every command. We will do our best to lead the Western Divine region, and we won't let the Devil Master or the Devil Queen down. We eagerly await your punishment if we do. The Killin Emperor knew that the Blue Dragon Emperor would be unwilling to say many of these things, so he did it for her. After all, the Killin realm and the Blue Dragon realm had always had a very good relationship with each other. It was something that the entire universe knew about. This was because the behavior and principles of these 2 realms were far too similar. As a result, the Killin Emperor had always regarded the Blue Dragon Emperor as half a disciple and half a daughter. He had watched her grow up, watched her become an emperor, and now he had also helped pull the Blue Dragon Emperor and her realm away from the edge of the abyss. The Killins and blue dragons kneeling behind them were filled with relief and gratitude as well. It was at this moment that they finally truly understood why the Killin Emperor had acted in such a timid and cowardly manner. The return of the Devil Master and the events that followed had proved it to be an eminently wise decision. After a long time, the Killins and blue dragons finally started to get to their feet. Their bodies were slick with sweat, and all of them felt as if an entire lifetime had passed since the Devil Master had spoken to them. The Blue Dragon Emperor lifted her head to stare at the distant Xianxia. He was currently seated on the ground as he cradled the small and delicate body of the heavenly wolf star god in his arms. His eyes remained fixed on her face, his gaze never leaving it. It was almost as if he wanted his face to be the first thing that she saw when she woke up. This scene showed an entirely different Xianxia from before. In fact, it was nearly impossible to connect the tender man in front of her with the imperious and bloodthirsty Devil Master, who had just ordered the slaughter of the Divine Masters of 4 different races. On the other side of the ruined deep-sea divine region, Shui Meiyan's figure had appeared in front of the World Dragon City. The World Dragon City was floating in the air high above the deep-sea divine region, far away from the battlefield. It was also a primordial divine warship, so even the shockwaves from the battle were not enough to scratch it. With Long Bai's death, the World Dragon City had lost its master. Shui Meiyan stared at it quietly before she stretched out a snowy hand. In the next instant, the strange crimson runes that covered the bottom of the World Dragon City briefly lit up before going dark again. The World Dragon City had obtained a new master in the blink of an eye. The World Dragon City's spatial divine power had come from the World Piercer. Thus, as the new master of the World Piercer, Shui Meiyan could have easily seized control of the World Dragon City from Long Bai even if he was still alive. A devilish light flashed behind her as Kai Waiao blurred into existence. White mist drifted about the proudly standing divine palaces, a boundless ancient aura emanating from them. As she swept her eyes over the entirety of the World Dragon City, even one such as Kai Waiao found her breath taken away. It is 180 kilometers long, and it contains 200 palaces of differing sizes. 30% of these palaces contain independent spaces that have not collapsed, so they are far larger than they seem to be. It isn't a very big city, but every single brick and tile is made from primordial divine stone. So even if more than 90% of its divine power has dissipated, it is still practically indestructible in the present world. Shui Meiyan continued. Also, every palace in the city is engraved with a primordial seal. It is clear that the Dragon God realm did not dare to forcefully break these seals, so they could only quietly wait for them to vanish naturally. Perhaps this is also one of the main reasons it has never appeared in the last 1,000,000 years. When Long Bai awakened it, he only used its spatial hopping ability. In other words, none of the palaces in this World Dragon City have ever been used. So, Kai Waiao asked as she turned to look at Shui Meiyan with those beautiful eyes of hers. Shui Meiyan's eyes sparkled as her giggles rang in the air like the tinkling of silver bells. So how about we make it Big Brother Xianxia's Imperial City, the World Dragon City? This was the profound ship that the primordial heretic god personally crafted and gave to the primordial dragon gods. It was both the heretic god's legacy and a legacy of the true dragon gods. Thus, it truly was the most suitable imperial city for Xianxia. In this current era, he was the only person who was truly qualified to be the master of the World Dragon City. That's a good idea. Kai Waiao's seductive eyes curved up in glee. However, I think that we need to change its name first. I'll leave the issue of the name to you then. Shui Meiyan giggled. I'm guessing that you've already thought of an imperial title for Big Brother Xianxia back in the northern divine region, correct? Of course, Kai Waiao said with a small smile on her face. Shui Meiyan stretched out a hand, and a cluster of red light that didn't radiate any aura flashed in her palm. The sacrifices and losses we suffered during this battle were far too great. What we need to do right now is to take a good long rest. Let's cancel the seals of some of these small palaces first, and let them rest and recuperate here. As she said that, scarlet runes suddenly appeared on the 6 nearest palaces to the entrance of the World Dragon City. The scarlet runes slowly lit up row by row, gradually thinning out and disappearing into the ether. Shui Meiyan lowered her hand and slowly exhaled. Kai Waiao had been silently observing Shui Meiyan before she suddenly said, I have many things I want to ask you, but you probably won't answer my questions, will you? He, A dazzling smile appeared on Shui Meiyan's face. I think it'd be better for big brother Yun-Chi to tell you himself at a time that he deems fit. Okay, I'll be going off first to take care of big sis. Kai Waiao's gaze followed Shui Meiyan's figure into the distance before looking back towards the divine palaces whose seals Shui Meiyan had so easily broken. After that, she recalled Yun-Chi's extremely unusual change, and a knowing expression soon appeared on her face. Shui Meiyan had been right. The profound practitioners of the northern divine region were in dire need of some rest and recovery time, no matter whether it was to heal their bodies or fix their spirits. The Qilin realm and the Blue Dragon realm would concentrate on guarding the north and the west to prevent any possible incidents. Meanwhile, the sorely wounded northern region profound practitioners would be loaded up into the World Dragon City. As Yun-Chi held Keijai, he slowly walked into one of the palaces inside the World Dragon City. This place seemed to be a huge bedchamber, and it was far more extravagantly decorated on the interior than it had been on the exterior. It radiated an ancient but tranquil aura, but it showed no signs of age and not even a speck of dust. However, Yun-Chi's mind was far too preoccupied to appreciate these finer details. He placed Keijai on the jade couch that was nearest to him. After that, he held her right arm in one hand while planting his other hand on her chest, causing the energy of the divine miracle of life to circulate within her. Under the effects of his light, profound energy, Keijai's wounds, which weren't that serious in the first place, started to heal at a speed which the eye could discern. Keijai's breathing started growing more and more regular as her face regained its usual ruddy complexion. Light, profound energy dispersed as Yun-Chi exhaled softly. Maintaining the profound-handled dragon god for such a long period of time had greatly taxed his profound energy and soul power, and now that he had finally relaxed, he felt his brain begin to fuzz over as a slight sensation of dizziness kept assaulting him. At this time, he suddenly sensed someone looking at him. He turned around to see a pair of icy eyes, which were a lustrous and ephemeral blue, staring at him. "It looks like she's fine," Xianxia said. Her attitude and gaze remained as cold and indifferent as ever, and she resembled an ice statue of absolute beauty which had been carved in ancient times. Keijai had known about Xianxia's survival for a very long time. In fact, she had found out even earlier than Kai Waiao had. The two of them had come to the southern divine region much earlier to prepare the way for Yun-Chi and to help ensure that the threat of Nan Wansheng would be forever neutralized. "You should focus on taking care of her," Xianxia said as she turned to leave. "Xianxia!" His soft cry rang in her ears as a warm energy assaulted her. She was grabbed from behind by a pair of arms which hugged her very tightly. Xianxia's body tensed up, and she was just about to gasp when Yun-Chi's body pressed against her. His wildly thumping heart and his burning presence was communicated to her in an incomparably clear manner. She closed her eyes and stopped struggling. The last time he had hugged her this tight was when they were about to be parted by death. They simply stood there for the longest time before Yun-Chi's whisper rang in her ears. Was it the Ice Phoenix's power of nirvana? "Yes," Xianxia whispered back. "When I woke up in the depths of the heavenly Netherfrost Lake, the memories the Ice Phoenix left me within that power of nirvana told me everything." "So it was just as I had thought," Yun-Chi softly whispered. However, he did not show the smile he always did when he found someone he thought he had lost. His arms unwittingly started to tighten even further as a deep fear flooded his heart. If the Ice Phoenix had not possessed the same nirvana divine power as the Phoenix, if the Ice Phoenix divine being had not left the last of her power to Xianxia because of the guilt she felt toward her, then he would really have lost her. He would have lost her forever. His arms gently grabbed her shoulders before he whirled her around. After that, he stared deeply into her eyes. Xianxia's lips twitched. "Xianxia." As he stared into her ice-blue eyes, Yun-Chi enunciated each and every word in a slow and clear voice. "From now on, you'll never ever leave me again, right?" He no longer called her master, and no longer even looked at her as his master. Instead, his hot and passionate gaze, which was right in front of her, clearly conveyed his longing for her. She was immediately flustered by his actions, and her heart was thrown into chaotic disarray. She was able to hide her mind and intentions to the point where she could perfectly assassinate the Crimson Destruction Dragon God before anyone even noticed. However, she had just been thrown into a new battle, one which was entirely new to her, so the defenses of her flustered and bewildered heart were crumbling away like brittle ice. She fiercely turned her head away to avoid Yun-Chi's burning gaze. to think that it used to be Xianxia who would cower and look away under her own cold gaze. No, Xianxia slowly shook his head. He spoke as if he was talking to himself. I shouldn't be asking you this question. It's one that I should be answering myself. Back then, my weakness and my foolish naivete so very nearly cost me everything. He softly exhaled, but his gaze remained fixed on Xianxia's face in the past. He would never dare to look her in the eyes. He was afraid of seeing rebuke in those icy eyes, and he was even more afraid of seeing that look of cold disappointment. However, when she had fallen into his arms outside the blue pole star, those unfocused eyes were more beautiful than a million stars before they eternally faded from life and into his memories. Those memories had filled him with boundless yearning, but he knew that he could never touch her again. Fortunately, now that she had returned to him in this most miraculous fashion, there was no way he would act as timidly as he did before. There was no way that he would ever let go of her again. Very soon, I will be the master of everything under heaven, and I will make sure that there is no person or power in this world that can ever take you away from me. After he said that, he suddenly leaned forward, his lips pressing against Xianxia's lips. Xianxia's icy eyes widened into saucers. As chaos and confusion raged in her heart, she suddenly felt a huge force press down on her. Before she had even realized it, she had been pressed to the ground by Xianxia. Xianxia unconsciously struggled against him. But her power, which had surged out amidst her bewilderment, had been suppressed by Xianxia in an incredibly tyrannical manner. Don't even think of fleeing. Xianxia pressed down on her. I want to make up for all those years that I lost you. Even more than that, I want to make up for the mistakes that I made in the past. He was behaving completely differently from how he used to in front of Xianxia, but in truth, his fear of his master still remained. It was the existence of this fear that caused him to behave in this rough and brutish manner, because he was determined to overcome and extinguish it in the most brutal and violent way possible. Back then, it was this darned fear and timidity that had nearly cost him the chance to even repent for his actions. Don't. For some odd reason, she felt exceptionally weak and uncoordinated as she struggled against him. Even the sounds that escaped from her lips were, for some odd reason, nearly as soft and cottony as Kai Wao's voice. They are all still outside. You are the devil master. You can't. Xianxia waved a hand, and a dark barrier sealed away the entrance to the palace. After that, he snarled in a fierce voice, Let's see which of them dares to approach this place. At this point, Xianxia had completely succeeded in his task of bullying his master. No matter how Xianxia tried to struggle, he would simply press down on her brutishly to stop her from escaping. Xianxia, remember this. I'm no longer your disciple, and it seems that I have to burn the fact that you are no longer my master into your mind. As such, I won't listen to you, and I definitely won't let you escape from me any longer. There's still Xianxia. Oh. Xianxia waved a hand again, and a barrier the color of ice appeared around them, completely hiding their bodies and voices from the outside world. Just as the ice barrier started to form, Xianxia, who had been lying on the jade couch, let out a soft groan before she started to blearily open up her blurry eyes. Kai Wao's body slowly drew near to the palace. When she saw the black barrier covering the entrance, she was stunned for a moment. But after that, she gently reached out with her devil's soul, and a naughty little smile appeared on her lips. She immediately used her devil's soul to send a sound transmission to everyone. This is an order for the entire realm. The Devil Master's soul and mind sustained some wounds in the previous battle, so he needs to quietly rest and recuperate for a while. No one is to disturb him for the next 24 hours. However, she did not leave after she sent that sound transmission. Before too long, she saw Xianxia hurriedly fly over despite her own weak and thin aura, just like she had expected her to. What's wrong with him? Xianxia asked as her brows knit together tightly. Why does he suddenly have to rest for such a long time? Was he really pushing himself just now? Given Xianxia's powers of recovery, which completely defied all logic and common sense, 24 hours of recovery time was absolutely a very long time. It told Xianxia that he was far more exhausted than he had let on. Realm had entered its greatest turmoil in history. This was especially true for the Western Divine region. One might even say that their world had changed overnight. When the news that the Dragon Monarch had forcefully mobilized all the divine masters of the 6 Western region king realms, and descended upon the Northern region current headquarters like magic using the word Dragon City, every profound practitioner in the God realm was shaking with joy. When Long Bai laid down the order to wait for Xianxia for 12 hours, The news that the Northern Divine Region's lineup was completely surpassed by the Western Divine Regions was unveiled as well. In that moment, almost everyone was certain that the Dragon Monarch's unnaturally fast and brutal counterattack would wipe out the Northern Divine Region for sure. The ensuing battle had caused more than half of the Southern Divine Region to shake like the apocalypse was upon them. Countless Southern Region profound practitioners had dropped everything they were doing and escaped in the opposite direction of the battlefield with all their strength. However, when the dust settled and the news of the final outcome of the battle was spread, what they heard nearly caused their hearts to implode on their own. The Western Divine Region had lost. Long Bai was dead. All the divine masters of 4 realms, the dragon gods, the Emperor Kai, the Hui dragons, and the myriad manifestations, were dead, and yes, that included the dragon gods and the dragon sovereigns. Everyone, the only survivors of the battle were the Qilin realm and Blue Dragon realm. Of course, everyone's first reaction was to disbelieve the news, every word of it. Only the profound practitioners of the Blue Dragon realm and the Qilin realm were beset by a seemingly permanent sense of dizziness after receiving confirmation from their own kind that the seemingly impossible news was in fact horrifyingly true. At the World Dragon City, after the barrier disappeared, Xianxia stretched and let out a refreshing breath of air. Then he saw Keijai sitting on the jade bed and examining him expressionlessly. His lustful smile immediately froze on his face. The corners of his mouth twitched repeatedly before he was finally able to stutter out the words, Why you woke up? Keijai, I've been awake for 6 hours, replied Keijai coldly. In fact, she had flown around the entire World Dragon City 3 times already. Email protected number %. A short distance away, Xianxia hurriedly turned away, dispelled a certain smell with her ice energy, and vanished into thin air. She had acted so quickly that Xianxia didn't even have the time to react. For a time, Xianxia was paralyzed by the decision to chase after Xianxia or leave her be for the moment. The peerless Northern Region Devil Master, who just buried the entire Dragon God realm in the abyss half a day ago, looked red enough to die from embarrassment. The man certainly felt like cutting himself in half, so he could take care of both Xianxia and Keijai at the same time. Is this how you plan to fulfill your promise to my sister? Keijai's milky white face was so cold that not a trace of emotion could be seen from her face. To drown yourself in another woman's pleasure right before me, your formal wife? Xianxia's entire body stiffened when the word sister escaped Keijai's lips. All the consoling words he wanted to say suddenly died inside his throat. Keijai, He was about to say something when he heard a sudden snort. When he looked up, he saw in disbelief that the girl's lips were pressed into a trembling straight line, and her eyebrows were curled into crescents. She was trying to stifle her giggle, he realized in a daze. For a second, he felt like he had traveled back in time to when Keijai was still the cute and devilish little Jasmine he knew. HMPH. Devil Master or not, it looks like your ability to handle scares is as bad as ever, hee. A smirking Keijai said while shaking her head and swaying her legs to and fro. The intimidating aura that surrounded her a moment ago had vanished completely. If it was a random woman, especially that damned Kaianai, then yes, I would have been absolutely livid. I would have ignored you for an entire month. But Sister Xianxia, no, I would never be angry at her. If it wasn't for her sacrifice back then, you would have. She stopped there and beckoned Xianxia to come closer. Sit with me, brother-in-law. Keijai's behavior seemed to have changed drastically after she awoke from her slumber. She was clearly aware of what had happened while she was unconscious. Maybe this was why she had finally removed the heavy chains she had wrapped around her own heart all these years. Xianxia obeyed and sat down beside her. He then asked in an affectionate voice, Are you feeling okay, Keijai? Is there anywhere you would like me to check? Keijai didn't answer the question. Instead, she lay her head gently on Xianxia's chest, closed her eyes, and just listened to the sound of his heartbeat. A very, very long time later, she finally whispered, It's all over, right? Yes, it's all over, Xianxia replied. Long Bai is dead. Everyone who deserves to die is more or less dead as well. I kept Zhou Zuzi alive, though. There's no way I'm going to let him die quickly after everything he has done. There is nothing left in this world that can threaten us. We are also free to make or unmake the laws of the world as we wish. Amen, Keijai responded shortly before letting out a sudden murmur. This is all a dream come true, so why doesn't sister get to witness the future she wanted? Why only her? Her voice was as quiet as a dream, but each word shattered Xianxia's heart again and again. Yun Qi wrapped his arms around Keijai before exhaling heavily. The blue pole star was unharmed. His homeworld, his family, and his beloveds were all safe and sound. He had successfully exacted revenge on his enemies. He had reversed the irreversible fate of the northern divine region, and he had even reclaimed Shunian, the person he thought he had lost to death forever. But Jasmine, he could torture Zhou Zhuzi for another 10,000 years, but she would never return to him. The second Shunian escaped the bedroom. She immediately ran into Kai Waiao. The Devil Queen had been guarding by the entrance all this time. "So, how many times did you do it?" Kai Waiao teased smilingly. Shunian barely resisted the urge to hit her. If her complexion hadn't been frozen for tens of thousands of years, she would look as red as an apple right now. She had never felt this meek in her life. In just 6 hours, Yun Qi's treatment of her had gone from being forceful and disrespectful to almost violent and violating. He had used the most insolent and extreme methods possible to remind her that their former master-disciple relationship was well and truly a thing of the past. Unable to withstand Kai Waiao's gaze any longer, Shunian strode away in an attempt to escape the woman. However, when a thought suddenly struck her, she stopped in her tracks and conjured a light blue sound isolation barrier around herself and Kai Waiao. "What did you see during Long Bai's final moment?" Shunian asked softly and seriously. The Devil Queen's smile vanished like it was never there. She raised her hands and constructed another sound isolation barrier within Shunian's sound isolation barrier. She even imbued it with her Nirvana Devil soul. This way, not even Yun Qi and Shui Meiyan's abnormally strong souls would be able to pierce the double-layered veil. Finally, Kai Waiao said in a mosquito's voice, "When Shenzai died, she was with child by Yun Qi." Shunian faced toward Kai Waiao with a look of uncontrollable shock. What? Obviously, Yun Qi wasn't aware that Shenzai was pregnant when he left the forbidden land of Samsara, said Kai Waiao in the quietest voice she could manage despite being surrounded by 2 sound isolating barriers. Shenzai knew of Long Bai's abnormal feelings for her. That is why she kept her pregnancy a secret until the very end. "This does confirm one thing though, if only indirectly," continued Kai Waiao. "Shenzai wasn't exploiting Yun Qi purely for whatever purpose she had in mind. She must have had some degree of feelings for him, or she would have acknowledged the grave danger her child represented and aborted it from the start. She also loved her child very, very much." Not even Kai Waiao could remain unmoved after hearing the black oath Shenzai uttered upon losing her child. It was to the point where she chose not to repeat the exact words to Shunian because it felt like a violation of something. A long silence later, Shunian finally muttered to herself, "No wonder, no wonder." It was difficult, no, impossible to believe that Long Bai would murder Shenzai. After all, part of the reason he was famous was because his love for the Dragon Queen didn't waver in the slightest despite the passing of 300,000 years. Therefore, it was difficult to believe that he would murder Shenzai no matter how angered he was. But now she understood. That child was the last straw that broke Long Bai's reason completely. "Was it a boy or a girl?" Shunian asked. Her hands had clenched into fists and her heart felt like someone was squeezing it painfully. "I don't know," Kai Waiao answered. "However, Shenzai addressed the child as Zir in Long Bai's memory, so there's a good chance that she's a girl." The memory of Yun Qi clutching the glazed sound stones his daughter gave him flashed across Kai Waiao's eyes for an instant. This alone caused her breath to be caught in her chest for a very long time. If Yun Qi learns about this, "Is she really gone?" Shunian asked. "Long Bai used everything when he struck Shenzai's stomach." Kai Waiao sighed again. The memory she stole was the memory circulating in Long Bai's consciousness during the last hour of his life. The disintegration of his soul caused the quality of the images she saw to suffer greatly, but it was still enough for her to capture the outline, so to speak. Shunian closed her eyes and fell silent once more. "However," Kai Waiao's eyebrows knitted slightly as she said this, "Shenzai's death wasn't among his final memory fragments. All of his focus was on the scene where he attacked Shenzai and the impossible amount of regret and pain that accompanied it." "Regret? Pain?" Shunian's voice abruptly iced over. "He dares?" Suddenly she realized the implication behind Kai Waiao's words and asked, "Are you saying that Shenzai may still be alive?" Kai Waiao shook her head. "I'm not sure. What I can tell you is that I spent the past couple of hours sorting through all the memory fragments I obtained from Long Bai, and I noticed something strange." Shunian. Before the man passed away, his final thoughts were that of desire for Xianxia, not hatred toward Yunqi. Kai Waiao finished with a complicated expression on her face. During the last hour of Long Bai's death, Yunqi had crushed him and made him witness the northern divine region butchering the western divine region with his own two eyes. Normally speaking, he should be filled with despair for his situation and hatred for his enemy, Yunqi. In reality, though, thoughts of Xianxia had dominated more than half of Long Bai's consciousness. This was especially true when he fought against Yunqi. The only thing that was going through his mind at that moment was the mad desire to prove himself to her. His infatuation with Xianxia had evolved into something so ill and extreme that probably no one but himself could understand it. His final desire wasn't the desire to find Xianxia in the afterlife. Kai Waiao paused to consider her words carefully before continuing. It was the desire that Xianxia will appear and save him again. Xianxia continued along that line of logic. So that means Xianxia could very well be still. We shouldn't indulge in too much optimism. Kai Waiao shook her head again. Xianxia carries with her a special light, profound energy that belonged to her and her alone before she trained Yunqi. Long Bai knew her for hundreds of thousands of years, so he must know her aura better than anyone. Assuming that she was still alive, and considering the vast amount of power the Dragon God realm wielded, he should have found her a long time ago. The hope in Xianxia's eyes immediately dimmed when she found that she was unable to refute Kai Waiao's words. It could be that Long Bai was unable to believe or accept the fact that he had murdered Xianxia. He could have deluded himself into believing that Xianxia had just disappeared to somewhere unknown, if only to ease the pain and regret he was feeling. Of course, it is possible that Xianxia is still alive, and that she has vanished to somewhere where even the Dragon God realm cannot find her. However, she looked straight into Xianxia's eyes. Do you think we can share this hope with him? No. Xianxia shook her head without a shred of hesitation. Yunqi had come to accept Xianxia's death during those black, painful years. If they told him that Xianxia could still be alive, knowing that there was a high chance that he would suffer a similar level of pain and disappointment again. On the other hand, if they kept quiet about this, and Xianxia herself returned to the world someday, the pleasant surprise he received would be akin to that of a miracle. And we definitely don't tell him about the child. Xianxia turned away and gazed toward the horizon. He has already suffered too much in his life. All I wish for him is to enjoy the rest of his lifetime carefree and without worry. Even if he became drowned in his desires and degenerated into a tyrant, I will never allow an unfixable hole to appear in his soul again. In her eyes, the world already owed Yunqi too much. No amount of atonement and compensation would be enough to make up for what he had gone through. She wouldn't stop Yunqi even if there came a day where he turned the entire God realm into a living hell. After all, unlike everyone else, she had already experienced true death. Kai Waiao nodded deeply. This will stay between you and I. It took Shui Meiyan less than a day to unlock all the palace seals of the World Dragon City. The seals on certain special defense mechanisms, profound formations, and the lower space were a lot more complicated, but she fully expected to unlock them all in less than a month. She very much looked forward to the day that enough energy was injected into the unlocked World Dragon City. After all, this was a true ancient profound ship. After a whole day of rest, Yunqi had regained most of his soul energy. Standing on the World Dragon City, he looked quietly at the flattened, blood-drenched 10 directions deep-sea god realm for a very long time. The biggest obstacle had been eliminated. His last person of hatred had been eliminated from this world, and he was well and truly the pinnacle existence of this world. So why did he not know what to do next? He should return to the Blue Pole Star now and inform his loved ones of his safety. But a little more than 2 hours later, he finally turned away and followed Kai Waiao's trail of aura. "I've been waiting for you, my devil master," replied Kai Waiao with a smile when Yunqi approached her. She knew full well that Yunqi would fall into indecision after the battle ended, and he no longer had a clear goal to strive for. He was just a 30-year-old man. Of course, he wouldn't know where to even start to become the emperor of the universe. Yunqi let out a helpless sigh. "I've been trying really hard not to become dependent on you, but it turned out to be a pipe dream in the end. Ruling the world is way harder than becoming unrivaled beneath the heavens, so to speak." He was sure that Kai Waiao had plotted out every step he should take after this victory. "Before that, I want you to answer one thing." Kai Waiao walked closer to him and looked him in the eye. "What is your heart's desire exactly?" Do you want to usher this world into an era of abyss so that you and the northern region profound practitioners who have suffered for 1,000,000 years can vent their darkness to their heart's content? Or do you wish to become a true ruler of the primal chaos and lead the realms just as you have led the northern divine region? The latter, Xianxia responded. I knew it, Kaiwao smiled. For the past couple of years, your hatred was like an infinite horde of devils that was barely penned up inside your heart. From the beginning, I was worried that your hatred would eventually break through your control and devour you completely. Then you just changed. The day you came back with Meiyan, Kaiwao said seriously, can you tell me what happened that day? Amen, it is time I tell you about that. Xianxia looked to the south while pressing a finger to his glabella. A small ball of soul light slowly appeared into view. For the past few years, I could not wait to destroy everything and anything. I could not help but want to slaughter every living being on these star realms one by one and bathe myself in their blood. After all, I'm the one who saved them all, and yet I'm the one who lost everything. However, the reason that drove me to hate the world and become a devil vanished that day. Vanished? Kaiwao raised her eyebrows. After the soul light was ready, Xianxia tapped it gently into Kaiwao's glabella. That day's memories immediately entered her mind. For a long time, Kaiwao couldn't say anything. Her eyes were the only thing that betrayed the turmoil of emotions she was feeling right now. Incredible, Kaiwao murmured to no one in particular. She had never witnessed such a ridiculous turnaround until now. The world piercer, Shui Meiyan. As it turned out, engraving that fateful day into the illusory glazed imagery jade wasn't the only thing she did for Xianxia. She even fooled the entire primal chaos, protected Blue Pole Star, and made Xianxia into what he was today. Indirectly, she was even the savior of the northern divine region. This wasn't the first time Xianxia saw Kaiwao shocked, but it certainly was the longest he had ever seen from her. It made sense, though. No one could have seen this coming, especially since the destruction of the Blue Pole Star was witnessed by countless divine masters and god emperors. It felt as if the mountain of weight that was sitting in her heart all this time suddenly scattered into the wind. A kind of joy and relief like nothing she had ever felt before coursed through her body and tugged her lips into a beautiful smile. I see. This is truly wonderful. It may very well be the greatest miracle the world has ever seen. Xuanian, Keizai, Kaianying, the northern divine region. I'm sure everyone will rejoice for eternity when they learn about this. Her eyes turned a bit misty while she was speaking, but she chased it away immediately. Although Xianxia had removed the emotional upheaval he felt during the memory, she knew that Xianxia must have cried loud and hard on that day. It wasn't something any willpower in the world could endure. Also, I must admit that I've underestimated Meiyan completely. I had no idea that she had done so many things for you and paved so many stepping stones for us in secret. Amen. Xianxia nodded lightly. It will take untold lifetimes to repay all the love and favor I owe her. I'm sure she'll be satisfied with just one lifetime of love. Never betray her confidence, okay? Kaiwao said with a beautiful smile on her face. Xianxia's change was obviously a good thing, but she never imagined that it would be caused by such a beautiful, even dreamlike miracle. Now she understood why he was willing to enter the eternal heaven-divine realm for 3 whole years, when previously, even one day's wait was absolute torture to the man. After discovering that his loved ones and homeworld were safe and sound, forget 3 years. He would endure 30 or even 300 years if it meant securing a better future for them. The dragon god realm has been destroyed and Long Bai is dead. The biggest threats to our safety no longer exist in this world, so this is the best time to meet them, right? Xianxia asked in a sorrowful tone for some reason. The fact that you're asking this shows that you are aware that now is still not the time to meet them, Kaiwao said consolingly. I know what you're thinking. I understand your urgency and your guilt. You may have removed the biggest obstacles in your path, but you have only just begun your journey to ruling this universe, Kaiwao explained slowly. The Western Divine region alone is a significant threat to your rule. You may have butchered the divine masters of the dragon gods, the Emperor Kai, the Hui dragons, and the myriad manifestations completely. But there are still over 400 upper star realms and 2,000 middle star realms who may oppose you. While this combined force may not be enough to threaten you or us, the Blue Pole Star is just a lower planet. It won't be an exaggeration to say that it is as fragile as a newborn child before the God realm. Right now, there are countless star realms and profound practitioners in the God realm who both fear and hate you. It is impossible to change the long-time prejudice toward dark, profound practitioners in a short time either. If the blue pole star is exposed before you are able to take sufficient control of the God realm, and if you are to make even a single mistake during this time. Kai Waiao shot Xianxia a long look. Xianxia didn't react to Kai Waiao's words too much. He asked calmly, "What will be the best time to return then?" "When you've officially been crowned the Emperor of the Primal Chaos," Kai Waiao answered. "It will not take too long. Barring any accident, it should take only a year to stabilize things." "Can we do it in half a year?" Xianxi's gaze turned distant. "Wuxin's 20th birthday is in 199 days, and I don't want to miss her birthday ever again." Kai Waiao was going to say something when she saw the inexplicable emotions swimming behind Xianxi's eyes. A short silence later, a playful smile suddenly sprung across her lips. "Half a year is not impossible, I suppose. I will need your full cooperation, though, my dear devil master." Xianxia faced toward her and replied seriously, "Understood. Tell me what I have to do." When it came to acting the emperor, controlling the people, and especially manipulating their minds, he and Kai Waiao didn't even belong in the same game. Kai Waiao slowly walked to Xianxi's right side before starting. "Forceful suppression is one of the easiest and most thoughtless ways to eliminate all those who oppose you. But it is not applicable to our current situation. For starters, our core strength is severely damaged, and we cannot afford to lose even a single one of them in the short term. Also, this method causes more fear than respect. Therefore, the best way to do this is to fool everyone into thinking that you already have the entire primal chaos in your palms, and turning the star realms and profound practitioners who intend to rebel into heretics before they can unite into a sizable threat. The sooner the better. Given enough time, the rebels will crumble upon themselves before we even lift a finger." Xianxia frowned and thought for a moment before answering, "This is much harder than just suppressing all enemies by force." He waited patiently for Kai Waiao's answer. He knew that the Devil Queen wouldn't make a suggestion unless she already had a solution at the ready. "That is correct. However," she shot Xianxia a look and smiled playfully again. "The stars are aligned just well enough for us to make this work, if you will afford me your cooperation, of course." "What in the world do you want me to do?" Xianxia asked. "It's a very secular but very useful method that the royalty or nobility of any plane often employ." Kai Waiao continued a short pause. "I'm talking about political marriage." For 3 whole breaths, Xianxia couldn't say anything. "H-A-H?" Kai Waiao smiled at his reaction before continuing. "Thanks to Mei Yin's recordings, everyone knows that you saved the world and that you were betrayed by the King Realms and Upper Star Realms. This means that we have an excellent foundation to begin our plan right off the bat. Next, we begin building the momentum for the world to acknowledge your rule, and the first step to doing so is to exaggerate both facts." Her voice slowed and deepened for a bit. "History has always been written by the victor, not a fair and impartial observer. With this as the base, what do you think will happen if you have an imperial consort in every divine region?" she said while shooting Xianxia a charming look. Xianxia froze as he thought of the implications. "You don't need to do anything regarding the northern divine region. The world already knows that I am your queen." For some reason, she sounded a tad resentful when she said this. "All 4 king realms of the eastern divine region are either crippled or destroyed, and the only one that is relatively intact, the Brahma monarch god realm, is ruled by Kainying. Naturally, she has no qualms about becoming your consort. The star god realm is dead in all but name, but the heavenly wolf star god is still around, and the king realm's lost divine artifact is in your hands. You can aid Keijai in rebuilding the star god realm, make her the god emperor, and claim her as your consort later. In the same vein, you can support the snow song realm and turn it into a new eastern region king realm. Although the snow realm as a whole is pretty weak, there are few profound practitioners in the world who can match Mu Xuanian right now, not to mention that you were once a disciple of the divine Ice Phoenix sect. That is all the legitimacy you need to make this happen. Once enough high-quality resources and your special ability has been injected into the sect, it is only a matter of time before it grows into a true king realm. Do you understand what I'm saying now? When all is said and done, you will have 3 god emperors, each one representing a king realm, as your consorts. This is the news that will stifle all seeds of disloyalty in the eastern divine region and unite everyone's wills as one." Again, Xianxia couldn't say anything for a very long time. "You can do things like this?" Kai Waiao continued. "Let's move on to the western divine region. 4 out of 6 of its existing king realms are dead in all but name, but that is fine because there is a perfect candidate for you to marry among the 2 remaining king realms. She is the Blue Dragon Emperor. Xianxia's eyes widened like saucers. You can't possibly suggest that. She does not have the right to refuse. Kai Waiao ignored Xianxia's interruptions and continued. She can detest the idea from the bottom of her heart, and she'll still choose to become your consort because it is the best possible protection the Blue Dragon realm can hope to have right now. Plus, her stance will change ever so subtly after she becomes your consort, even if only in name. Consciously or not, she'll favor you every time she makes a decision. As you are already aware, the Qilin realm and Blue Dragon realms are as close as family. In fact, the Qilin Emperor practically treats the Blue Dragon Emperor like his own daughter. Once the Blue Dragon Emperor becomes your consort, the Qilin realm will naturally follow your lead to a certain extent. Once the beaten outsider has become a part of the family, so to speak, it becomes much easier to make certain things happen in the Western Divine region. As for the Southern Divine region, I have already found the right candidate for you during our stay in the Deep Sea realm. A strange smile crossed her lips as she said this. I guarantee that you will be satisfied with my choice. Having said that, all I need you to do is to nod your head, and all these god emperors will become your consorts. This is something that has never happened in the entire history of the god realm. I promise you that it will generate a kind of momentum that will suppress all seeds of disloyalty without costing a single life. But, Xianxia said with a serious face, I've only met the Blue Dragon Emperor a couple of times. There is literally no love lost between us whatsoever. I'm not sure. It's in name only, dear. Love has never been a necessary element in political marriages, Kai Waiao said. Also, did you forget that I myself am your queen in name? We haven't even consummated our love yet, have we? You playboy, Xianxia. It's not like the Blue Dragon Emperor has any undesirable qualities either. On the contrary, her countenance is exquisite. Her skin is as soft as water, and as far as I know, there is no woman in the world whose body shape is as good as hers. Also, as a god emperor, the Blue Dragon Emperor was going to practice a lifetime of celibacy until you came along. If anything, I think she's the one who should be complaining about this, not you. Xianxia. Macron, Japanese letter Macron. There are no downsides to having a consort in name, and in this case, it'll make taking control of the Western Divine region many times easier. Also, if you ever feel like it, you can always cross off the in-name part and actually lay your hands on her, can you not? Are you going to tell me you don't like the idea? Xianxia couldn't stop himself from imagining the long, pale, and stunningly beautiful legs he saw underneath the Blue Dragon Emperor's blue skirt that day. They were like a pair of white jades carved by one of the most masterful smiths in the world. His heart began thumping wildly. To his surprise, he was actually very tempted by the offer. Plans, of course, if the idea really is that detestable to you, then you can pretend that you've never heard of this. There is no one left in the world who can force you to do anything. Kai Waiao then blamed herself dramatically. I'm so sorry, but this is the only way I can think of to take over the world in half a year's time. Unless you have a master plan you would like to share with me now, oh, magnificent one. Who is your choice for the Southern Divine region? Xianxia asked seriously. The Southern Divine region only had 3 male god emperors left after the destruction of the Southern Sea realm. Kai Waiao couldn't be plotting to choose a random woman and make her his consort, could she? Kai Waiao smiled at Xianxia's expression before replying. Obviously, the 10 Directions Deep Sea realm is our best choice. Kang Xishan is extremely loyal to you right now. You don't know this, but he even called himself your mad dog during the earlier battle. Xianxia frowned a little before lowering his voice. Devil Queen, are you seriously going to elevate Kang Xishan in an important position? Of course, Kai Waiao replied smilingly. When the situation is bad, gamble. When the situation is good, play it safe. That's what you always say, Xianxia said. Kang Xishan may be a god emperor, but he is an impetuous, twisted man whose modus operandi is illogical to the point where it is almost unpredictable. I can barely tolerate the idea of letting him live, much less making use of him. So why? Still smiling, Kai Waiao said in a serene tone, you are correct. A mad dog is difficult to control, and no one can predict when he will turn on his master. Unfortunately, a mad dog is exactly what you need right now. Xianxia, it's simple. Kai Waiao explained, right now there are countless people who hate you to the bone. For example, those who lost their loved ones or even entire families in your war. Even worse than this, is the million-year-long perception the three divine regions have had toward the northern divine region. They could pretend to accept the devil people and their darkness profound energy, but it doesn't take a genius to know that they are a long, long way away from truly accepting things. The one and only way to deal with these uncontrollable elements that may turn into huge threats in the future is to eliminate them quickly and ruthlessly. However, this type of dirty work cannot be done by the devil master himself. The devil people are a poor choice as well. With that in mind, who better than the mad dog who betrayed the southern divine region for the devil master a long time ago to bear this ill reputation? Xianxia's expression was half parts astonishment and half parts realization. Chief Enforcer, Kai Weiao voiced the words slowly. This is the new title I have prepared for him. Just give me the nod, and he will be reborn with a whole new identity. You want a man who detests the very concept of law and order to act as my enforcer. Xianxia shook his head smilingly. You are the only one who can come up with these types of ideas. He will enjoy his new role thoroughly. At the very least, he will enjoy it 1,000 times more than being a god emperor. Suddenly, Kai Weiao changed her tune. But of course, there have to be some restrictions. A ruler is an amalgamation of two faces. The one on the outside must be as clean as a virgin silver, and the one on the inside must be as black as sin itself. Xianxia knuckled his glabella for a bit. Kai Weiao's bite-sized. How to become a ruler 101. Knowledge was starting to give him a headache. When he was the frozen cloud immortal palace master, he basically dumped all his responsibilities on Murong Xianxia and the girls. Maybe he could do the same here? Actually, judging from Kai Weiao's expression, she already knew what he was going to do to her. Xianxia shook off his muddy thoughts and said in a surrendering tone, "Fine, we'll do as you say." Right now, his foremost desire was to take control of the world, eliminate all those small but unignorable threats, and reunite with everyone in the blue pole star. All this ruling stuff wasn't his forte anyway, so he might as well follow Kai Weiao's plan to the letter. Sometime later, the realms reunited at the center of the ruined deep-sea god realm. After a day or so of rest, thanks to the dark resonance of calamity and misfortune, the northern region profound practitioners had mostly recovered from their recent plight. Their eyes had shed the pain of losing their loved ones and the joy of having reversed their fates, and they had regained their dark determination once more. What is the situation? Xianxia scanned everyone present before asking. Fendayaki took a step forward before reporting. We have not yet regained our full strength, but we are capable of carrying out our duties now. The Western Divine region is currently knee-deep in panic, and the Dragon God realm, the Emperor Kai realm, the Hui Dragon realm, and the Myriad Manifestations realm especially are in total chaos. This is a good chance to suppress them once and for all. Please command us to carry out the suppression right now. By the time we reach our destination, we will have regained around 70% of our strength, so worry not about our capabilities, your magnificence. Once we enter the Western Divine region, we will slaughter all opposition and bring you glory. The Qilin Emperor shook a little and looked like he wanted to say something. In the end, though, he chose to stay silent. However, the Blue Dragon Emperor had no such inhibitions. She suddenly took a step forward and said, Divine Masters of the Northern Divine region, you have slaughtered the Divine Masters of the Dragon God realm, the Emperor Kai realm, the Hui Dragon realm, and the Myriad Manifestations realm. The Blue Dragon realm and the Qilin realm have also submitted to you, and given our word that we would persuade the fellow people of the Western Divine region to submit to you peacefully. So why do you still need to carry out a forceful suppression? Are you joking? Fendayaki's respectful tone turned icy in an instant. There was no love lost between him and a member of the Western Divine region. If the dregs are left untouched, they will become a threat in the future. Also, did you already forget the Blue Dragon realm lives only because his magnificence granted you his mercy? How dare you question his decision already? Heart-thumping like crazy, the Qilin Emperor hurriedly stepped out and said, Please quell your anger, your magnificence. The Blue Dragon Emperor didn't mean to offend you. She is stepping out of line only because she dislikes conflict and cannot bear to watch the blood of the Western Divine region be spilled. Please forgive her indiscretion. She can't bear to watch the blood of the Western Divine region be spilled? Xianxia sneered as he side-eyed the Blue Dragon Emperor. Who was the one who spilled the blood of the Northern Divine region for 1,000,000 years then, and where were you when it happened? Where were you when I was betrayed by those animals, and my even saving of the world was hidden from the people? Have you ever spoken a single word in my defense? The Blue Dragon Emperor's lips parted, but she couldn't think of a single word to defend herself. AC, actually, the Killin Emperor protested weakly. At the edge of the primal chaos, the Blue Dragon Emperor did intend to speak in defense of you back then. I was the one who stopped her from doing so. I swear on the Killin's name that every word I have said is true. The only response Xianxia had was a disdainful snort. Calm down, you too. It was at this moment Kai Weiao interrupted with a smile. His Magnificence never said that he will suppress the Western Divine Region by force, did he? Also, the Northern Divine Region is sorely injured right now. If it's possible to take control of the Western Divine Region without wasting a single life, why wouldn't we opt for such a method? Forget the Killin Emperor and the Blue Dragon Emperor. Even the Northern Region profound practitioners were surprised by her words. Of course, that is only if you two are able to control the Western Divine Region to that extent. Kai Weiao was smiling, but her voice grew several degrees more intimidating than before. Overjoyed, the Killin Emperor swallowed his excitement and said, Yes, Her Majesty is completely correct. Don't worry, Your Magnificence, Your Majesty. The Killin race and Blue Dragon race are only second to the Dragon God race in terms of reputation. Now that the Dragon Gods have perished, the people of the Western Divine Region will surely look to us as their leaders. I promise. You promise, but how are you going to go about this task exactly? Xianxia suddenly spoke up in a cold voice. The startled Killin Emperor immediately bowed his head before Xianxia's invisible might. He forced himself to say, I will do my best. I will accept any punishment if I fail to fulfill my promise. Those are some bold words. It's a shame that your promise is worth nothing to us. Kai Weiao's words shut up the Killin Emperor like a clamp. She continued, Without exception, all 4 divine regions look to the King Realms as their heads. The head of the Northern Divine Region need not be said. The head of the Eastern Divine Region used to be the Eternal Heaven Realm, Moon God Realm, Brahma Monarch Realm, and Star God Realm, but now only the latter 2 realms are left. Thankfully, there is a way around this. The God Emperor of the Brahma Monarch Realm is His Magnificence's future consort. The Star God Realm is half dead, but the Heavenly Wolf Star God is still present. She can take over as the Star God Emperor. However weak it may have become, the Star God Realm is still a long-time King Realm. Finally, Snow Song Realm King Muxunian slew the Crimson Destruction Dragon God in one strike during yesterday's battle. This achievement alone puts her above all King Realm God Emperors. Considering the decline of the Eastern Divine Region, she alone can elevate the Snow Song Realm from a Middle Star Realm to a King Realm. Once His Magnificence takes her as his consort, no one will dare to question the Snow Song Realm's legitimacy as the 3rd and new King Realm of the Eastern Divine Region. Once the God Emperors of the future King Realms of the Eastern Divine Region all become His Magnificence's imperial consorts, peace is but the foregone conclusion. Kai and I Yinger. Keijai, Muxunian. Everyone in the Northern Region faction was stunned beyond words. The 2 of you, though, you and the Western Region King Realms you command are outsiders. You are not family. With that said, how can we trust you more than we trust our own to influence the Western Divine Region? Do you 2 understand what I'm saying? Kai Weiao side-eyed the Killin Emperor and the Blue Dragon Emperor. What about you, Killin Emperor? The Killin Emperor was an incredibly wise man. His confusion only lasted half a breath before realization struck him, and he abruptly dropped to one knee. He declared, You are completely right, Your Majesty. In that case, if this old one may say so, he would like His Magnificence to take the Blue Dragon Emperor as his consort. Jaws hit the floor the second the people made sense of his words. The Blue Dragon Emperor was in the middle of figuring out Kai Weiao's meaning when she heard this and felt like a lightning bolt had hit her. She turned toward the Killin Emperor and exclaimed uncontrollably, What did you just say? Contrary to the Blue Dragon Emperor's shock, the Killin Emperor calmed down and said seriously, The Devil Master is the successor of the heretic God and the Devil Emperor. He is an existence who surpasses all who live and breathe in the primal chaos. In just a couple of years, he has both saved the world from destruction and terrorized it with his unparalleled power. Be it in terms of power or prestige, there are none who can surpass him, be it now or before. With such qualifications, who but he deserves to rule the primal chaos? Who but he deserves to become its first true emperor? With that in mind, isn't it natural that he will take only God Emperors as his consorts? If His Magnificence accepts the Blue Dragon Emperor as a consort, the Western Divine Region will no longer be an outsider, force so to speak. The combination of the Blue Dragon race 1 million-year-long reputation, and the Blue Dragon Emperor's new status will surely speed up the elimination of the seeds of disloyalty in the Western-Divine region as well. Also, as His Magnificence's imperial consort, she will naturally work even harder to support him. And we, the Qilin race, will assist Consort Blue Dragon in guiding and affirming the will of the Western-Divine region as well. Xianxia didn't wrong the Qilin Emperor when he called him an old fox earlier. Not only had he figured out Kai Wao's intentions and acted accordingly, he even changed the way he addressed the Blue Dragon Emperor to Consort Blue Dragon. He wasn't even speaking against his own will. Clearly, the old man could barely keep his excitement and joy from bubbling out of control. "That is a good suggestion you have there, Qilin Emperor," Kai Wao praised before looking at the obviously distressed Blue Dragon Emperor. "It looks like His Magnificence doesn't dislike this particular idea either. What about you, Blue Dragon Emperor?" The Blue Dragon Emperor was about to reply when the Qilin Emperor's urgent sound transmission entered her ears. "Blue God Emperor, I understand what you're feeling, but Consort Blue Dragon is just a title. To the Devil Master, marrying you will allow him to kickstart a massive momentum to seize the Western Divine region. To the Western Divine region, this is also good news. If the marriage goes through, the amount of casualties will be kept to a minimum. The Blue Dragon realm especially will gain a level of protection the other realms can't even hope to gain. There is no one left to stop Xianxia from becoming the Emperor of the Primal Chaos. To become his consort is an honor, not a mark of shame. If you reject this, things will devolve into the worst-case scenario which you hope to avoid. It may even become worse than our imaginations. So you mustn't reject this no matter what. You mustn't." The Blue Dragon Emperor was well aware that she didn't have the right to turn this down. If she dared to reject the Devil Master's proposal, forget the Western Divine region, she and her people might not even be able to walk out of this place alive. A couple of deep breaths later, she said slowly, "If I agree to this, will you promise not to trample over the Western Divine region, Your Magnificence?" "Promise? Ha!" Xianxia barked out a laugh of utter disdain. "It looks like I'll have to correct your misperception, Blue Dragon Emperor. You are not sacrificing yourself to become my imperial consort. I am the one who's gifting you the opportunity to become my imperial consort. With that said, how dare you request me to grant you a promise on top of a gift?" The Blue Dragon Emperor ground her teeth visibly. The Blue Dragon Divine attendant standing behind her hurriedly gave her sleeves a tug. The Blue Dragon Emperor was naturally mild-tempered. She was fine being unwed despite having become a god emperor for 100,000 years. Individually, marrying the Devil Master was a huge personal sacrifice. Generally, she could scarcely imagine the day she met her ancestors in the afterlife. The Blue Dragon Emperor becoming another person's consort? It was unthinkable. As if that wasn't enough, she had to endure the Devil Master's verbal humiliation even before she accepted the proposal. Kai Wao's lips curled into a half-smile as she spoke. "You may not see it that way, but the title is ultimately just a title, a tool that we are using to the benefit of both of us. After that, whether you can truly win His Magnificence's affection is up to your own abilities." The Devil Master's harem has always faced fierce competition. Even the Brahma monarch goddess herself has abandoned her duties as a god emperor repeatedly just to stick by His Magnificence's side all day and night. In the future, the competition is only going to become 100 times worse. Sigh, woe is us. HMPH, Kai and Yinger humphed through her nose. Xianxia. Somehow, Kai Wao's words caused the Blue Dragon Emperor's taunt muscles to relax a little. After she had collected herself, she replied, "Understood. I will obey as His Magnificence and Her Majesty commands." "Very good." Kai Wao narrowed her naturally flirtatious eyes a little. "Since both parties have consented to this arrangement, it is officially decided that His Magnificence shall accept the Blue Dragon Emperor as his consort. The wedding ceremony shall take place at the same time as His Magnificence's coronation ceremony. Naturally, you will announce this wonderful news to the Western Divine region yourself, Blue Dragon Emperor." The Blue Dragon Emperor clenched her fingers until they turned white. Her voice sounded perfectly calm, however. "Understood. I will announce this to the Western Divine region immediately after my return." Kai Wao nodded slowly. "As expected of the Blue Dragon Emperor, I am starting to like you more and more. Who knows, His Magnificence may truly come to like you one day. I graciously accept your blessing, Your Majesty." The Blue Dragon Emperor just barely squeezed the words through her teeth without losing her cool. The Qilin Emperor bloomed into a smile and congratulated them. "Congratulations, your magnificence! Congratulations, consort Blue Dragon!" Xianxia didn't respond at all. The Blue Dragon Emperor looked like her features were frozen in ice. The Qilin Emperor only managed half a turn before he wisely took half a step backward with an awkward smile on his face. Meanwhile, Xianxia Yinger was glaring at the Blue Dragon Emperor's long, pale legs like murder. She knew that this was Kai Wao's ploy, and she fully acknowledged that it was an extremely intelligent one. That was no reason not to suspect that Xianxia was actually lusting for the Blue Dragon Emperor, though. After all, the Blue Dragon Emperor's legs were a pair of masterpieces like nothing in the world could compare to. Even she had to admit she was envious after just a couple of glances. Lastly, we shall speak of the southern divine region. Kai Wao finally turned her gaze onto Kang Shishan. The Devil Master now has consorts from the northern, eastern, and western divine region. Naturally, he needs a consort from the southern divine region as well. Kai Wao's eyes glowed dark and bright. There are no suitable candidates among the Xunyuan realm and the Purple Micro realm, so my apologies, God Emperor Shishan, but you will have to make a great sacrifice. Email protected number %. Kang Shishan felt like death was crawling across scalp. The man who normally feared nothing was literally shaking from head to toe right now. He forced himself to say, Why, your majesty, the heavens as my witness. Shishan is absolutely loyal to his magnificence. BBB, but I don't do homosexual, so this is probably detrimental to his magnificence's reputation as well. So, can we please reconsider this, your majesty? Your magnificence. Shishan's words and even their lips had started to twitch. HMPH. Kai Wao's voice immediately turned cold. God Emperor Shishan, you are allowed to act the fool, but if you dare to sully his magnificence's name, that will be an unforgivable sin. Kang Shishan swiftly sank to his knees and exclaimed in a solemn voice, I do not dare. However, I would request your magnificence and your majesty to make your intentions clear when it comes to my 10 directions deep sea realm. Xianxia turned to look at Kai Wao. What exactly was she planning to do to the 10 directions deep sea realm? Even he was not aware of what she was scheming up this time. Kai Wao had not spoken to him privately about it before this, so it was clear that she hadn't wanted him to reject it outright. However, it was at this moment that his eyes suddenly turned sharp before he looked toward the southeast. A vast array of auras had generated a huge storm behind them as they swiftly zoomed toward this place. It was a group of not more than 100 people, but every aura was at the Divine Master realm. There were even 2 God Emperors leading the group. This was undoubtedly a terrifying assembly of power that would sweep over any location like a tidal wave. However, this vast and abnormally strong group of auras was clearly filled with a deep panic and fear. The closer they grew, the more flustered and scared they became. It practically seemed as if these people thought that they were flinging themselves into a deep abyss of doom. It was the Divine Masters from the Xunyuan realm and Purple Micro realm. Even though a day had already passed, one could still taste the dense tang of dragon blood in the air, a smell that pierced the hearts and souls of the Divine Masters from both king realms. The mound of tattered dragon corpses shocked them even more, but it was the mounted head of the dragon monarch that nearly made their bladders burst from fright. Their legs started shuddering crazily and uncontrollably. Thud. Even though they were still far away, the Xunyuan God Emperor and the Purple Micro God Emperor fell heavily to the ground and landed on their knees. They kowtowed and yelled, The troops from the Xunyuan realm and Purple Micro realm have arrived late. We beg your magnificence and your majesty for forgiveness. It is our utter fortune and blessing that you are still both safe and sound. Your divine might stretches over the world, and you trampled over the king realms of the west, cutting down the calamity that almost befell you. The atrocious demonic dragons have all fallen by your hand, and all the universe will now be in the palms of your hands. Your might will stretch through all the ages and cover the heavens themselves for all eternity. It was an acknowledgement of their sins, words of fatuous praise, and oaths of loyalty rolled all in one. However, one could clearly hear the increasing violent trembling in both of the God Emperor's voices. Long Bai's head was mounted barely a kilometer away from them. The divine power inheritors and divine master-level elders of both king realms had all fallen to their knees as well. Not a single one of them dared to display their usual common arrogance. The divine masters of 4 king realms of the west had all been exterminated, and this included the mightiest king realm of them all, the Dragon God realm. This news was so frightening that none of them could even bring themselves to believe it at first. Kai Waiao's devilish eyes quietly turned towards them, her ice-gold gaze slowly sweeping over their bodies. You've certainly chosen the right time to arrive. The eyes of the Xianxia God Emperor and Purple Micro God Emperor widened into saucers as their bodies tensed up like coiled springs. The Xianxia God Emperor immediately pressed his forehead against the ground as he practically prostrated himself before Xianxia and Kai Waiao. The Dragon Monarch? Oh no, I meant that dastardly demonic dragon of the Western region. His actions and movements were simply far too sudden. Once I heard the news, I immediately prepared for battle and rushed over at full speed. But I did not expect the divine might of the Devil Master and Devil Queen to be so powerful that you would only need a single short day to trample over these wicked dragons. The Purple Micro God Emperor quickly followed up. On the day the Southern Sea God realm fell, we already threw ourselves at the feet of the Devil Master. The heavens and earth can stand as witnesses to our loyalty. It is as bright as the light of the sun and the moon. However, we did not manage to reinforce our master in time, and it was solely due to our incompetence. I am too ashamed to even look for an excuse, and I willingly await his magnificence's punishment. The two mighty god emperors prostrated themselves before Xianxia as they blabbered tearfully. They didn't possess a single iota of their usual dignity as god emperors at the moment. Every single one of the divine power inheritors and elders behind them wore extremely complex looks on their faces, as they witnessed their god emperor's undignified and shameful behavior. In their last meeting, the two god emperors had been forced to bow their heads as a stopgap measure to prevent Xianxia from destroying them. However, today's situation was entirely different from their last meeting. The previous humiliation they had been forced to endure now seemed like a most blessed and fortunate choice in this moment. They had chosen to be neutral observers in the grand battle between the West and the North, neither helping Long Bai or Xianxia. As such, even if Xianxia did choose to punish them, it would most likely not result in their annihilation. "Your Magnificence, how should we deal with them?" Kai Waiao asked. Xianxia's eyebrows briefly knitted together before he barked out a cold and curt command. "Spare the useful ones and kill the useless scum." "We're definitely useful. Definitely useful." Xianxia's words ran through the two god emperors like a bolt of lightning. They anxiously exclaimed, "Every living creature in the Xianxia realm awaits the Devil Master's command. We will not have a single regret or complaint even if you order us to our deaths. The line of the Purple Micro realm will serve the Devil Master with loyalty for all eternity." "Xianxia realm, Purple Micro realm, hear me," Kai Waiao said in a quiet and composed voice. The two god emperors immediately fell silent the moment the first word spilled from her lips. "I will give you 5 months. You are to continue eradicating the remnants of the Southern Sea bloodline, while also getting every Upper Star Realm king in the Southern Divine region to kneel before Xianxia and swear their loyalty to him. All of this must be accomplished within the next 5 months. When the Xianxia God Emperor and Purple Micro God Emperor lifted their heads to look at Kai Waiao, their faces were filled with extreme gratitude. If you can accomplish these 2 simple tasks in the next 5 months, you will survive without losing a single hair on your heads. But if you can't, HMPH, there really isn't any reason to keep around useless sinners, is there? 5 months, all of the Upper Star Realms in the Southern Divine region. The Xianxia God Emperor and Purple Micro God Emperor's scalps went numb as their hearts cried out in dismay. But they did not dare voice a single complaint or attempt to even negotiate with Kai Waiao. Instead, they obediently said, "We understand. We will commit all of our effort to accomplishing these tasks." "Oh, that's right," Kai Waiao continued. "If you do meet any stubborn fools, there's no need to waste too much time on them. Just smash in their skulls. However, you also need to remember this. Even though His Magnificence once saved the universe, he ended up being betrayed by it and everyone in it. Now that he finally reigns supreme, he could have chosen to vent his hatred on the world for their crimes against him. However, he, in his infinite compassion, chose to give the world peace instead. Unfortunately, there are some foolish people in star realms that are simply too pig-headed to acknowledge this. Not only are they not grateful to His Magnificence, they even want to go against the decree of heaven and cause chaos in the land. You were just unable to overlook this, so you chose to punish them in order to maintain peace and security in the Southern Divine region. None of this has anything to do with His Magnificence. Do you understand? We understand. We understand." The Xianxia God Emperor and Purple Micro God Emperor hurriedly nodded their heads as tension began to bleed out of their hearts. They could kill the ones who refused to listen. This allowance had actually made their task far easier. This is the chance that His Magnificence is bestowing upon you. You had better not mess this up. After she finished speaking, Kai Waiao no longer deigned to even look at them. She turned toward Kang Shishan. Kang Shishan, upon the Devil Master's suggestion, I am appointing you our Keeper of Order, someone second only to me and His Magnificence himself. Your job will be to pacify any and all rebellions against this New World Order. The 3 words, Keeper of Order, fiercely pricked at Kang Shishan's nerves. He instantly understood what his role was, and all of the blood in his body started boiling like raging lava. A look of deep gratitude and excitement appeared on his face as he bowed and said, I thank your magnificence and your majesty for this favor. I will definitely devote my entire existence to preserving order in this world. I will exterminate every demon and monster that would seek to disturb our newfound peace. The hearts of the Xianxia God Emperor and Purple Micro God Emperor, who were still prostrated on the ground, were filled with shock as looks of admiration and envy crossed their faces. Kang Shishan was now only second to the Devil Master and Devil Queen, and he had even been bestowed the title of Keeper of Order, something which would fill the hearts of all who heard it with both extreme terror and pensive introspection. This meant that he practically possessed a level of power and authority that put him above the rest of the universe, a status that even exceeded his previous title of God Emperor. Kai Waiao continued, 6 months from now, during His Magnificence's grand coronation ceremony, we will officially bestow this title upon you. We will also begin to form the squad that you will command at that time. Kang Shishan, His Magnificence, has not only forgiven you of your previous sins, he has even decided to put such faith and trust in you. You had better not let him down. Of course, Kang Shishan replied in a voice filled with gratitude. After that, he asked, since I will be devoted to helping the Devil Master and Devil Queen maintain order in the universe, I won't be able to lead 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm. Regarding the one who will succeed me, do your Magnificence and your Majesty have any thoughts on that? Kai Waiao always found it refreshing when she spoke to someone who was quick on the uptake. This meant that she did not need to waste any superfluous words on them. She immediately replied, within a month, I want you to transfer your position as Deep Sea God Emperor to your royal sister, Kang Xiu. This name immediately caused Kang Shishan's eyes to tremble violently. Kai and Yinger instantly frowned. Kang Shishan naturally bowed her head as he swiftly shook the look of utter shock from his eyes. He replied in a perfectly calm voice, to think that my sister Xiu would be shown such favor. What an honor and blessing. However, your majesties may not know this, but Xiu has been frail and ill since birth. Not only is her profound cultivation weak, she is also ill-versed in the ways of this world. She can't even inherit our deep-sea divine power. I would dare say that she is the candidate least suited to this position among my many brothers, sisters, and even my children. Kai Waiao let out a dry chuckle. If I say she is suitable, then she is suitable. You only need to pass your throne to her. There is no need for you to pass her the deep-sea divine pearl as well. After all, she is only going to be emperor in name. You, Kang Shishan, will still be the true ruler of the 10 Directions deep-sea realm. As such, her true capability is entirely irrelevant to this discussion. As for her incompatibility with the deep-sea divine power, that is something that you need not worry about. His Magnificence will naturally make her compatible with it. After all, we can't allow the 10 Directions deep-sea realm to have a god emperor who hasn't inherited the deep-sea divine power in its history books. So for Kang Xiu, this is also the fulfillment of a grand wish and blessing upon her, isn't it? I see. Kang Shishan bowed deeply toward them. Then I will obey. Within a month, I will transfer my position as Deep-Sea God Emperor to Xiu. I also want to take this opportunity to give my utmost thanks to your majesties on behalf of Xiu. Thank you for showing her such favor. He bowed his head deeply, so no one could see his pupils narrowing in shock and confusion. They only heard the intense gratitude in his voice, and not the sound of his teeth lightly chattering. Do I need to give you any further instructions on what you need to do? Kai Waiao said with a soft laugh. Kang Shishan immediately replied, once Xiu has inherited the throne, I will find a suitable time to announce that she will also become a concubine of the Devil Master, and that the 10 Directions deep-sea realm would be joined to the Devil Master forevermore. Very good. Kai Waiao gave a slow nod of her head. You are indeed worthy of His Magnificence's trust and confidence. Yun Qi had caught both Kang Shishin's momentary loss of control and Kaianai Yinger's strange reaction. He immediately sent a sound transmission to Kaianai Yinger. "What is so special about this Kang Xiu?" Kaianai Yinger glanced at him and replied, "To put it simply, she is a woman of the deep sea realm that Kang Shishin desperately wants every outsider to forget ever existed. Even I had very nearly forgotten about her. To think that she was still alive, and that Kai Wyo actually managed to dig this information up." Yun Qi furrowed his brow. "Who exactly is this person?" Kaianai Ying asked. "Now that you have seen Kang Shishin's true personality, do you think that he really wanted to become the deep-sea god emperor?" Yun Qi thought about it for a second before replying. "Given everything that I've witnessed so far, I really must say that he really isn't compatible with the title God Emperor." Even though the title of God Emperor was the ultimate symbol of status and power, it was also something that fettered anyone who inherited the title. This was because every action and every word, every attitude and every posture that a God Emperor adopted would represent their king realm, and even an entire divine region at times. Given Kang Shishin's personality, being bound to something was definitely the one thing that he hated the most. That's right. According to Kaianai Fanshin's memories, Kang Shishin had not been the original successor to the throne of the Ten Directions deep sea realm. He had forcefully grabbed it by using every and all means at his disposal, and the main reason behind his ruthless and despicable behavior was his sister, Kang Xiu. "Why?" Yun Qi asked. During the years he had spent in the God realm, he had never heard anyone mention the name Kang Xiu even once. Kaianai Yinger sifted through the memories of Kaianai Fanshin, which had already started to become blurry, before replying. As the son of the previous deep-sea god emperor's concubine, the status of both Kang Shishin and his mother was not high. However, Kang Shitian not only showed astounding potential since his youth, he even managed to resonate with the deep-sea divine pearl when he reached 1,000 years of age. However, this also aroused fear and apprehension in his eldest brother. He was afraid that Kang Shishin would threaten his position as the deep-sea realm's crown prince, so he plotted to assassinate him before he inherited his deep-sea divine powers. However, this assassination attempt was foiled by Kang Shishin's mother, and she was also badly wounded in the process. Furthermore, she was pregnant at that time, so she passed from this world after she barely managed to give birth to her daughter. Right before she died, his mother did not entrust her daughter to the deep-sea god emperor, who had barely any feelings for her in the first place. Instead, she entrusted the infant girl to her brother, Kang Shishin. "I heard that it was after this event that he started calling himself Shishin." The corner of Kaianai Yinger's lips twitched in mirth before she continued. "This may sound rather ridiculous to you, but he was also the one who gave Kang Xiu her name. To think that someone who called himself Shishin would actually give his own blood sister the name Xiu. What a joke this was. So he did all of this just to fulfill his mother's dying wish." Yun Qi found this quite hard to believe. A mad dog like Kang Shishin, someone who could barely contain his desire to piss on every rule and law written in the universe, was actually such a filial and faithful person. Kaianai Yinger continued. Because she was badly wounded during the assassination attempt, Kang Xiu was born with many serious ailments. Her body was extremely frail, and if not for the protection of her brother, who had already become a sea god by then, she probably wouldn't have lived past 100 years of age. Unfortunately, this sickly princess just so happens to be as beautiful as she is frail. Kaianai Yinger gave a soft snort before she continued her account. "It's rumored that that lustful devil Nan Wansheng actually saw her during one of her rare public appearances. After that, he shamelessly visited the Ten Directions deep sea realm more than 20 times over the next 3 years, and a rumor soon sprang up from it. The rumor was that the deep sea god emperor was going to marry Kang Shuhu to Nan Wansheng as his queen. As his queen? Yun Qi's eyebrows twitched violently. Becoming a queen and becoming a concubine were two totally different concepts altogether. Furthermore, this was the Southern Divine Region's #1 king realm. He had actually visited the Ten Directions deep sea realm over 20 times in the span of 3 years, making his infatuation practically comparable to his 1,000-year chase of Kaianai Yinger. "That's right," Kaianai Yinger replied. "You can well imagine just how obsessed Nan Wansheng was with Kang Xiu." However, a strange and sudden event occurred a short 2 months after that rumor started to spread. Kang Shishin used some unknown means to wrest control of the deep-sea divine pearl from the deep-sea god emperor. Then, he forced his father to step down from the throne and took it for himself. After Kang Xishan was made emperor, he immediately announced that Kang Xiu had fallen deathly ill and needed a very long time to rest and recover later on. There was very little news of Kang Xiu at all. She also seemed to have disappeared completely, and even Nan Wansheng did not manage to catch a glimpse of her despite his many visits to the Deep Sea Realm. When the entire 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm had fallen into Kang Xishan's hands, Kang Xiu started slowly fading into obscurity. In fact, even the occasional rumor about her was that she had died from illness. Speaking of which, Kai-Na Yinger's golden eyes narrowed slightly as she stared straight at Kai Waiao. Even I have never seen Kang Xiu, and I would have forgotten that name if you hadn't brought it up. So where did Kai Waiao even find out about it? And why was she so confident that she was still in the 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm? She may very well have grabbed hold of Kang Xishan's true weakness this time, and it might even be his only true weakness. The gloomy light in Kai-Na Yinger's eyes trembled slightly as she said, "This woman really is mind-numbingly terrifying sometimes." She even suspected that Kai Waiao had secretly wiggled her way into Kang Xishan's soul a long time ago. "Devil Master, Devil Queen, where do we go now?" Fen Deaki asked as he took a step forward. Kai Waiao turned to face Fen Deaki and let out a soft and dreamy sigh. "Let us return to the north." Region, the northern region profound practitioners, whose devilish blood had been boiling as they prepared to trample over the western divine region, were finally allowing the battle lust and malice to bleed from their bodies. It was clear that Kai Waiao's current strategies all revolved around avoiding battle. She did not want the core forces of the northern divine region to sustain any further damage. However, she also wanted to make sure that this dark hand that currently covered the entire God realm continued exerting its oppressive pressure. In fact, she wanted it to exert even more pressure. It was clear she was far better at controlling people than killing them. Of the western and southern king realms who had surrendered, either willingly or otherwise, Kai Waiao had used different methods to squeeze every bit of utility she could out of them, but she had also made sure that they still remained firmly under her iron fist. The deep-sea divine region was already surrounded by deep-sea profound ships that were waiting outside of it. This also included the blue-sea fierce shark who had left first with all the members of the deep-sea realm's royal bloodline. The surprise Kai Waiao had sprung on everyone, Kang Xiu, was also among those on the blue-sea fierce shark. However, she still had not made an appearance. That was fine with Yun Qi, as he had no interest in her whatsoever. He didn't even get Kang Xishan to call her over so he could see what she looked like. A bunch of black profound arcs had landed in the center of the deep-sea divine region, and the dark profound practitioners started to load their sorely wounded bodies onto them. They also brought with them the remains of their kinsmen and battle honors, which would last until the end of eternity as they prepared to return to the northern divine region. However, they would soon return with even more of their kinsmen. After all, how could they be absent from Yun Qi's grand coronation ceremony? The Blue Dragon of the West and Xiu of the South. Two people whom you have absolutely no relationship with or feelings for, one of whom you have never even seen before, can be forcefully made into your concubines just like that. This is what it means to be an emperor. Kai Waiao came to stand by Yun Qi's side before she continued her leisurely discourse. No matter whether it is a living person or a dead object, as long as you have sufficient reason and they have sufficient worth, you can seize them as you please, and no one will be able to defy you. I've only ever wanted the status that comes with this position. Not a single ripple had appeared on Yun Qi's face as he absorbed Kai Waiao's words. As for what comes next, how about this? You deal with the big things and I'll deal with the little things, Kai Waiao said with a charming laugh. In truth, Long Bai was already dead, and Yun Qi had even taken key figures from every divine region as concubines, so there really weren't any big things that was left for Yun Qi to deal with. I'll have to trouble and burden you then, Yun Qi said in a rather guilty voice. There was no one else under the heavens besides Kai Waiao that he could wholeheartedly entrust his burdens to. Kai Waiao's alluring eyes curved into lovely crescents as her cherry lips twitched up into a most bewitching smile. This humble concubine doesn't deserve such words from the Devil Master. A successful emperor is most proficient at using other people, and isn't this humble concubine also someone under your command? As Yun Qi stared into Kai Waiao's eyes, his own eyes grew unfocused and distant, and he unwittingly stretched out a hand to touch her face. It was at this time that Hua Jin's voice suddenly rang from outside the hall. "Master, Kang Xishan seeks an audience with you." Yun Qi's hand froze in midair before ever making contact with his target. After that, he immediately turned around and said, "I'll go out and take a look." He descended from the world Dragon City and into the midst of the dark, profound practitioners who were preparing for their departure. All of them, whether near or far, immediately kneeled before him. He would not be able to tell how the profound practitioners of the other divine regions would regard him after he became the emperor of the god realm, but he could be sure of one thing: the northern divine region's loyalty towards him, a loyalty that transcended even belief and conviction, was something that would perhaps endure for all eternity. "Daeyaki," he called out. Fen Daeyaki's figure quickly drew near to Yun Qi. He bowed deeply at the waist and said, "What instructions does the Devil Master have for me?" Yun Qi raised a hand, and a jade magatama that flashed with a gloomy black light appeared above it. As Fen Daeyaki's eyes started to violently tremble, the magatama slowly floated towards him. "It is also the right time to return this burning moon exquisite devil jade to your realm," Yun Qi said solemnly. "The core of the burning moon's strength has practically been cut to zero, and the heavy burden of rebuilding it will now fall on your shoulders." Fen Daeyaki extended a hand that was trembling with uncontainable excitement. He very carefully took hold of the core of the burning moon's divine inheritance and stared at it blankly for a very long time. Then he kowtowed towards Yun Qi once again and said in a quavering voice, "Before this Daeyaki dies, I will definitely make sure that the Devil Master will see a whole and reborn Burning Moon realm once more. People who can perfectly inherit the Burning Moon divine power can only be encountered by fate and luck. However, the current Burning Moon cannot afford to rely on this lengthy and uncertain method. Find a few people from your Burning Moon bloodline whose bloodline is pure enough and whose innate talent is high enough. I will naturally ensure that their bodies will become perfectly compatible with the Burning Moon divine power they are to inherit. As for the rest, it will all depend on your own efforts and the luck of the Burning Moon realm." The gratitude on Fen Daeyaki's face multiplied as he kowtowed to Yun Qi. "The Burning Moon thanks the Devil Master for his blessing and favor. We thank the Devil Master for his blessing and favor. You may leave." Fen Daeyaki turned around and left, tears of gratitude streaming down his weathered face. "Yan Wu," Yun Qi called out another name. After Yun Qi used his light, profound energy on her, Yan Wu's external wounds had disappeared in a few short days, and she had recovered from about 60% of her internal injuries. It also seemed like she had grown up a fair bit after Yan Xiangxiao's death. "Devil Master!" She stopped in front of Yun Qi and inclined her delicate head in deep respect. Yun Qi slowly extended a hand towards Yan Wu, and a broken piece of pitch-black jade, no bigger than half the size of a fingernail, could be seen resting in the palm of that hand. After a brief moment of confusion, Yan Wu's body suddenly stiffened, as if she had been struck by lightning. Both her hands flew to her mouth as the sorrow that had started to recede once more rushed back to her face, her resolute and focused eyes instantly flooding with tears. "I searched for several days, but I could only find this," Yun Qi said in a gentle voice. "It still contains a bit of his aura. I originally wanted to hold on to it as a keepsake of him, but after thinking about it, I think that it should belong to you." This tiny piece of shattered jade was part of the pitch-black jade button that Yan Xiangxiao always wore around his waist. Yan Xiangxiao had burned up his body and soul, so he had turned into gray ashes when he had died. After that, even those ashes had been blasted to the four winds by an enraged white rainbow dragon god, so none of it could be found. As such, this small piece of shattered jade was the only thing left of him. Yan Wu stretched out a hand to take the piece of jade. She pressed her hand to her heart and remained silent for a good long while. Over the last few days, she had frantically ransacked the battlefield in search of any remains of her father, but she couldn't even find a shred of cloth. As a result, this tiny piece of jade, which had accompanied her father for many years and still contained a shred of his aura, was currently giving her the hope and comfort she so desperately needed. The current Yama realm is undoubtedly at the weakest and lowest point in its history. However, such a burden has now fallen on your shoulders. As a woman, this must be something far too cruel for you, but aside from you, Devil Master, please do not worry. When Yan Wu finally raised her head to look at him, all the tears had disappeared from her eyes. "I will not let anyone look down on Yan Xiangxiao's daughter." Yun Qi gave a small nod of his head. As he patted Yan Wu's shoulder comfortingly, the only thing he felt was a fragile weakness that caused his heart to ache for her. Now that he had addressed Yan Wu, it was Huo Tianxing's turn. Desolate Calamity Realm King, when you return home, I want you to personally hand over the bodies of Tian Muyi and his son to the Imperial Heaven Realm. After that, choose at least 30 people of good potential from the juniors of the Imperial Heaven's royal bloodline. I will personally groom them. Kang Shishin entered the main palace of the world Dragon City. Once he saw Kai Wao, he immediately dropped to his knees and spoke in an earnest voice. Devil Queen, I beg you please spare Xiu. Oh, spare. Kai Wao graced Kang Shishin with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. What do you mean by those words? Kang Shishin's head remained bow as he said, Xiu's life has been one of misfortune and sorrow. The biggest reason that I gritted my teeth and snatched away the throne from my father was to protect her. Given her extremely frail body, even surviving until this day required several miracles. She simply can't bear any heavy burdens, much less succeeding me as God Emperor or becoming a royal concubine of the Devil Master. I beg that the Devil Queen choose someone else. As long as it's not Xiu, anyone else from the 10 Directions Deep Sea Realm will do. I will also swear my eternal loyalty to the Devil Master and Devil Queen if you just accede to this plea of mine. Kai Wao's devilish eyes half-narrowed as gloomy light spilled out of them. After that, she suddenly let out a low laugh. Ha, this is a sight I thought I'd never see. Given your intelligence, Kang Shishin, you should know that the more you're worried about something, the less worried you should look. If you lay all your cards on the table like this, aren't you simply laying bare all your weaknesses to this queen? Kang Shishin slowly lifted his head to look at her before saying, It is the person who attempts to be clever in front of the Devil Queen that is the true fool. Take a guess, then. Do you think that I will really change my mind? Before Kang Shishin even had an opportunity to reply, Kai Wao continued, There's no need for you to answer. Since you already know that I've made up my mind, you should also know that I won't change it. But what you are truly asking for is not for this queen to change her mind. No, you are asking for a promise from me. That's right. Kang Shishin did not deny her words. Indeed, attempting to hide something from Kai Wao or trick her was simply a fool's errand. This humble Shishin dares not ask for this promise from the Devil Master, so my only alternative is to turn to the Devil Queen. I swear that I will definitely serve you with loyalty from now onward, and even death will not sway my heart. HMPH, loyalty is never something that can be expressed with one's lips. Kai Wao's body shimmered, and she had already moved past Kang Shishin. As she slowly strode toward the palace doors, her faint devilish voice rang in Kang Shishin's ears. If Kang Xiu didn't exist, do you think that this queen would dare to put such trust in you? However, it is precisely because of this that Kang Xiu will live a good life from now on. To ensure your loyalty and devotion, we will have no choice but to treat her well, right? Furthermore, the Devil Master's light profound energy will grant her a new lease on life. She will be able to escape the pains and illnesses that have plagued her for her entire life, and she will also be able to perfectly inherit the deep-sea divine power. What's more, our Devil Master has always despised the bullying of women, so you need not fear that she will come to any harm. In fact, the status she will achieve at the Devil Master's side will depend entirely on her own actions. However, even if she has no desires and does not feel the compelling need to fight for the Devil Master's attentions, she will now be able to live proudly and openly like everyone else. But unlike everyone else, she will also have a status that places her far above most of the universe. Isn't this far better than the life she was living before? Kang Shishin remained on his knees as he turned to face the Devil Queen. However, Kai Wao had already vanished from sight. He still knocked his head against the ground and said in a quavery voice, I thank the Devil Queen for granting my wish. Devilish might, weak points, handicaps, and a heavy debt of gratitude, Kang Shishin knew that he, the previous God Emperor Shishin, could forget about ever escaping the palm of Kai Wao's devilish hand. The only thing left for him to do now was to get rid of all the filth that should not exist in Yun Chi's universe. After several days had passed, all of the Black Profound ships took to the skies. It was time for the Northern Region Profound practitioners to make their way back home. Of the large army of darkness that had accompanied Yun Chi out of the Northern Divine Region, only Kai Wao, the 3 Yama ancestors, and the 9 witches remained. So where are you headed off to next? Muxuanian asked. Well, naturally it's the Dragon God realm, Kai Wao replied with a small chuckle. I mean, how could we miss the opportunity to plunder the #1 king realm that has reigned imperiously over the rest of the God realm for the last 1,000,000 years? Killin Emperor, it's your turn to be the bad guy this time. This is honestly a pretty lucrative job. Even stealing 10 or 20% will net you a grand fortune. So I believe that the Killin Emperor has no reason to refuse, right? The Killin Emperor hurriedly replied, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. Every blade of grass on the Dragon God realm belongs to the Devil Master. How could this old man dare to take even one of them for himself? Chunian, come with me. It won't take too long. After that, I'll accompany you back to the Snow Song realm. Yun Chi's body unconsciously leaned towards Mu Chunian, but he was immediately pulled back by a vicious tug from Kaianai Yinger. No, Mu Chunian shook her head. Bingyun has been mourning me for several years, but I simply wasn't able to show myself or meet her during that time. Now that everything has come to a close, I need to immediately head back to comfort her. Then, Keijai, you? I want to make a trip to the Star God realm, Keijai whispered. The jade box in her hands contained the remains and possessions of the 6 star gods. It's also about time for me to release the dragons of absolute beginning from their duty. Meiyin, you? Father has sent me dozens of sound transmissions over the last few days, so I'll be accompanying my sister back to the glazed light realm. If I don't, I think Father will be worried sick, Shui Meiyin said as she stuck out her tongue at him. Yun Chi. When danger imperiled him, none of them were willing to stray a single step from his side, whether he knew it or not. However, now that no power in this world could threaten Yun Chi any longer, they could finally lay down the heavy burden in their hearts. God Emperor, Kaianai Bingju said, your vital energy is sorely wounded, and you are in urgent need of some quiet and rest. Allow us to escort you back to the Brahma Monarch God realm. No, Kaianai Yinger replied in a cold and calm voice. I will accompany the Devil Master to the Dragon God realm. Moreover, I will recover even faster if I am at the Devil Master's side. There's no need for you to meddle. Yes, Kaianai Bingju could only obey. I want you to inter Uncle Gu's body in the Brahma Heaven tomb. Also, Kaianai Yinger's voice suddenly grew hushed as she stole a look at the distant Kaianai Wugu. Make sure to take care of that old man. Don't you worry, God Emperor. A very faint smile appeared on Kaianai Bingju's face. Before too long, the auras of all who were present started streaking off in different directions. Dust no longer chaotically swirled in the wind. It started silently falling back down to the ground, but now this dust had quietly been dyed a deep black color. No one dared to predict the future of the God realm. Realm used to have the 9 dragon gods, 34 dragon sovereigns, and 308 master dragons. They also had the supreme dragon monarch reigning over them and the secret protection of the 5 venerable withered dragons. This was a strength that everyone in the universe would think was unshakable. However, not even a single master dragon survived today. The million-year supremacy of the dragon god realm had been toppled in a single day, and this toppling had been completely irrevocable. Once Yun Chi had given that merciless command to exterminate the entire dragon god line, they did not even have a chance to catch their breath, much less revive their fortunes one day. A king realm with no divine masters was like an old tiger whose fangs and claws had been pulled and whose bones had been broken. Even if their reputation still remained, they were already nothing more than harmless jackals. When the Blue Dragon Realm and Killin Realm returned with his order of obey or die, the Emperor Kai Realm, Hui Dragon Realm, and myriad manifestations God Realm could not even muster up the will to rebel. The cold and hard truth was that they simply had no choice in the matter. Matters were even simpler when it came to the Dragon God Realm. The Killin Realm simply swept in and took over the core of the Dragon God Realm, the most sacred and exalted location in the God Realm, the Dragon God domain itself. The entire Western Divine region was still shaking from the aftermath of all of these actions. If it had been Yun Chi or Kai Waiao who had led this incursion, the rest of the star realms in the Western Divine region could have banded together to fight a common foe, briefly forming some resistance. However, the ones who had come to do the Devil Master's bidding had been the Killin Realm and the Blue Dragon Realm, the 2 king realms with the best reputation in the Western Divine region. This not only dealt a huge blow to their psyche, it also made it far easier for them to accept their defeat and subsequent submission to Yun Chi's rule. Meanwhile, even as the Western region was reeling in shock, Yun Chi and Kaianai Yinger had arrived at the forbidden land of Samsara. A huge barrier lay in front of them, and the dragon god aura that emanated from it was strong enough to make everyone in a 5,000-kilometer radius feel as if an entire mountain range was pressing down on their backs. One could well imagine just how much power Long Bai had lavished on this barrier. Xianxia's eyes stared at the barrier fixedly, even though he had already accepted the worst possible outcome. His heart was still beating like a drum in his chest. "Can you open it?" Xianxia asked as she pursed her lips, her words pulling him out of his reverie. Xianxia took a step forward, phoenix flames igniting on his left hand and golden crow flames igniting on his right. Both divine flames merged together in the darkness, instantly becoming those peerlessly dreadful devil flames of eternal calamity. He directly hurled those flames at the dragon god barrier. Chi-I, Chi-I, Chi-I. As the soul-tearing sounds of the barrier being consumed rang in the air, Xianxia slowly sank his hands into it. After that, his brow dipped in exertion as his flaming arms pulled the barrier apart. Crack! A long crack was torn through the dragon god barrier. The devil flames of eternal calamity continued to gnaw away the edges of the crack, preventing it from repairing itself. Xianxia's brow suddenly furrowed even more at this moment. Xianxia's figure slipped through the crack as quick as lightning. However, when she turned back, she saw that Xianxia was still standing outside the barrier. He looked as if he was pondering something as he held the crack open. "What's wrong?" Xianxia asked. Xianxia stepped through the crack before suddenly saying, "I can still sense Long Bai's dragon soul inside this barrier." After Long Bai had died, the dragon soul he had suffused into the barrier started to swiftly dissipate. However, enough of it remained that Xianxia could clearly sense it. "That's normal." Xianxia wasn't the least bit surprised by Xianxia's words. He was covering up such a huge secret, so it would be strange if Long Bai had not infused his soul into this barrier. Xianxia's eyebrows still remained knitted together. After a short and pregnant pause, he asked, "Xianxia, are there any methods that will allow someone to slip into this kind of soul-infused barrier undetected?" Xianxia stared at him as she lapsed into deep thought. After that, she replied, "From what I know, there are 3 possible methods. The first is to use the eternal heaven god realm's great void cauldron. As the strongest spatial artifact of this era, slipping through a soul-infused barrier shouldn't pose a problem to it, no matter how many layers there are. The second is a special spatial profound technique from the purple micro realm called the prime purple micro. However, I cannot guarantee that the great void cauldron can slip through a soul-infused barrier of this level undetected. As for the prime purple micro technique, it's a skill that no one in the purple micro realm has been able to cultivate for 200,000 years. The third is naturally the world piercer that Shui Meiyin currently owns. As a profound heavenly treasure and the undisputed strongest spatial divine artifact in the history of the primal chaos, an artifact that can even switch planetary objects across the universe, penetrating a mere soul-infused barrier like this one is nothing more than child's play. When he had told Kai Wao the whole truth, Xianxia had been there as well. Unfortunately, Xianxia's reply had not dispelled the doubts and suspicions in Xianxia's heart. He asked, "The moon god realm doesn't have any similar secret spatial techniques, correct?" Xianxia finally understood the source of Xianxia's doubts. "So that's what's bothering you. I remember you telling me that it was Xia Qingyu who told you about Shen Zai's death. So you are wondering why Xia Qingyu would be able to figure this out even though Long Bai had personally set up a soul-infused barrier around this area. Right, Xianxia. HMPH, there's nothing strange about that," Xianxia said with a cold snort. "Every king realm has their own deeply hidden secrets and trump cards. It wouldn't be strange if the moon god realm possessed some sort of secret spatial art or hidden spatial artifact that no one else knew about. This is especially true for that woman Xia Qingyu. She possessed 2 extremely unique traits, the heart of snow-glazed glass and the 9 profound, exquisite body. So it wouldn't be surprising even if she performed feats which transcended all logic and common sense, much less snuck into Long Bai's barrier without a trace. This is one point which she really does share with you." Xianxia shook his head to shake off any unnecessary thoughts. "Forget about it, it's not important anymore, let's go." They soon reached the forbidden land of Samsara. However, the light barrier that had been shielding the forbidden land of Samsara for several 100,000 years had now grown as thin as mist. In fact, it looked so fragile that even a small storm could completely disperse it. When Xianxia reached out to touch the barrier, his finger instantly shrank back the moment he made contact with it. What lay behind this fading light barrier would undoubtedly destroy all of his hopes and fantasies in the cruelest manner possible. After he steeled himself, Xianxia walked through the light barrier and stepped into the forbidden land of Samsara. It was so barren that it made his heart ache. He no longer saw the birds or butterflies flitting through the air. no longer saw those rays of sacred light flash through the air, no longer saw the wondrous garden of herbs and flowers that used to fill the land. Everything was ruined, withered, and dead. Who? Xianxia closed his eyes and slowly exhaled. Even though she was trying her best to stifle her voice, Ling's stricken sobs could be heard through the sky-poisoned pearl. When he had first arrived in this place, he had felt as if he had been dropped into some fantastical and ephemeral dreamscape of wondrous beauty. Today, it felt as if he had been rudely roused from that dream, and the dreamscape had been completely and utterly shattered. Xianxia opened her mouth to say something, but when she sensed Xianxia's heavy heart, she simply couldn't bring herself to say anything. It was only after a long time had passed that Xianxia opened his eyes and slowly walked to the center of the forbidden land of Samsara, the place which had been a dream within a dream. The bamboo hut had been reduced to a pile of withered bamboo. The ground, which had once been filled with celestial herbs and spirit flowers, was now filled with grooves and cuts. It was clear that it had been hit by a huge force. However, a very faint thread of spiritual energy emanated from the broken and withered verdure. Xianxia's eyes bulged as he swiftly ran forward. Soon, an exceptionally charming-looking but weirdly shaped bunch of flowers appeared in his vision. As he carefully stepped through the bed of flowers, Xianxia's eyes froze on a dried-up patch of blood on the ground. The faint thread of spirit energy was the light energy aura that was unique to Xianxia. He slowly bent down and carefully scooped up that blood-stained patch of dirt. After that, he poured it into a jade container. Xianxia quietly followed behind him, even though she had always used the fact that Xianxia had come onto him first to insult and ridicule her. This had comforted her during the time Xianxia had used her as a sex slave while bringing a perverse sort of joy to her heart. However, the current mood and situation had also caused her to fall into a somber silence. She simply wasn't able to throw any of her usual barbs at a time like this. Xianxia, Xianxia whispered, "You weren't the Dragon Queen, even if you are no longer in this world. I will never allow any future records concerning you to be stained with the title of Dragon Queen. Even though I never found out whether you even had any feelings for me, or if you were simply using me to achieve some sort of arcane goal. Even though I never even figured out who you really were. None of these things are important to me any longer. You are my woman, and that is the only thing I can be sure of, something that even you cannot deny. The future generations will forever remember that you were Emperor Yun's concubine Zai." Xianxia's voice had started to tremble. "Unless you appear before me and reject what I have said, I will take it that you have agreed to this as well." As he finished whispering those words, Xianxia closed the jade container. No one knew if he was simply talking to himself or making a vow. HMPH? Xianxia gave a cold snort in her heart. He hadn't even properly ascended to the throne yet. But yet another name had been added to his harem. At this time, Xianxia suddenly sensed something. He swiveled around to look at the pile of withered bamboo that had fallen on the ground. He could faintly sense a very thin aura of light, profound energy emanating from that place. His body suddenly spun around as he instantly appeared beside the pile of withered bamboo. Now that he was so near this pile of ancient bamboo, Xianxia knew that he had not been mistaken. However, this light, profound energy aura was simply far too weak. If he did not possess light, profound energy himself, there was no way he would have detected it. Furthermore, this light, profound energy was not originating from that pile of withered bamboo. It was coming from something buried beneath it. "Oh, what did you find?" Xianxia asked. Xianxia did not say anything. He merely spread his hand and carefully reached into the ground with a thread of power. Bang! A muffled explosion rang out in the air as a neat hole that was about 30 meters deep appeared. Xianxia made a grabbing action with his hand, and something shot up from the ground and into it as dust swirled in the air. It was a simple bamboo tile. A very elegant Zai had been carved on the surface of the tile. When he immediately recognized this as Xianxia's handwriting. As his finger traced the character, he sensed a faint thread of light energy emanating from it. "Zai," Xianxia whispered. However, this light energy aura was not the only one of its kind. Xianxia's left hand sank down and another hole was drilled in the ground. After that, an identical bamboo tile flew into his left hand. This time, the character carved on the tile was Yun, and it was just as elegant and beautiful as the other one. Light radiated from it as well, and one could almost sense the warm emotions flooding through her heart when she carved those words. "Yun, Zai Yun, Yun Zai, Zai Yun," wishing for Yun. Xianxia's eyes narrowed before she let out a soft laugh. "I had always believed that Xianxia had simply used you as a toy. But it seems like she really did feel something for you. This wishing for Yun was truly carved with anxious longing and fulsome affection. Heh. 2. You're not allowed to insult her, Yun-Chi said as he slowly closed his hands over the bamboo tiles, wishing for Yun. To think that she had actually held such feelings towards him after he left this place. Was that fantastical year really not just her using him? HMPH. I'm praising her here, Kainai Yinger retorted in a much softer voice. Let's go. Yun-Chi did not continue to linger in the place. Before too long, he left the forbidden land of Samsara together with Kainai Yinger and stood in front of the crack he had created in Long Bai's barrier. He did not forcefully tear down the barrier that Long Bai had built, as this was the place where Xianxia had once dwelled. Even if she did not live here anymore, he still did not wish for any outsiders to disturb the place. The moment he exited the barrier, Yun-Chi received a sound transmission from Hua Jin. Reporting to the Devil Master, Master said that she discovered some interesting findings when she was sorting through the legacy of the Dragon Gods. She requests that you pay a visit to the Dragon God domain when you find the time to do so. What happened? Kainai Yinger asked. Yun-Chi grabbed her arm and said, Let's go to the Dragon God domain. The Dragon God realm managed to accumulate resources for 1,000,000 years as the ruler of this universe, so they had better not disappoint me. 1. This Zai is Chinese letter, which is the given name for Yun-Chi's daughter with Xianxia, Yun-Zai. But this word also means to hope/wish for something, which will soon lead to a spectacular misunderstanding. 2. Kainai Yinger is misunderstanding what Xianxia wrote. Xianxia wrote Yun-Zai, the Chinese characters for cloud and hope. Yun is also Yun-Chi's surname, and Zai is also not an uncommon word to be used in a girl's name. Neither Kainai Yinger or Yun-Chi are aware of Yun-Zai, the daughter of Xianxia and Yun-Chi. So Kainai Yinger mistakenly believes that she carved the words Zai Yun into the bamboo tiles, which can be interpreted as hoping/wishing for the clouds, aka hoping/wishing for Yun-Chi. Hence, Kainai Yinger interpreted this as Xianxia longing for Yun-Chi and immediately made a snide remark about it. But in actual fact, Xianxia was fondly thinking of her daughter when she wrote these words. Realm was still trembling in the aftermath of Yun-Chi's actions. The northern part of the eastern divine region had been one of the first places to have been struck, so the dark smoke of battle still lingered in the air. Only the Snow Song realm still remained cold, quiet, and tranquil, the same as it had been ever since ancient times. Mu Xuanian slowly stepped into the Ice Phoenix sacred region. Nothing had changed, but it seemed to her as if an entire lifetime had passed, because her heart no longer solely belonged to this world wreathed in eternal snow. Snow fluttered wildly in the air as blizzard winds seemed to rush out to greet her. They danced around her like a bunch of ice fairies, swirling around her robes like butterflies around a flower. As she followed after that most familiar aura, Mu Xuanian's feet softly carried her to the Ice Phoenix Sacred Hall, a place she was most familiar with, a place that had once belonged to just her and Yun-Chi. Ah! A startled cry rang in the air as Mu Feixu shot to her feet, and dumbly stared at the celestial figure who seemed to have stepped out of a dream and appeared in front of the sacred hall. Her icy eyes seemed to mist over as she softly cried out, Sect, Master! Mu Bingyun had been standing in front of that cold pond, decorated with ice feather spirit flowers when she sensed that aura, her body spinning around as quick as lightning. The gazes of both sisters met, the sight of Mu Xuanian instantly drowning out everything else in Mu Bingyun's eyes. Even her body seemed to have blurred into a crazily spreading icy mist. Big sister! With a soft cry, she dove into the arms of Mu Xuanian, the person she had been longing for day and night. As she dove into her embrace, Mu Bingyun started crying like a child. Icy tears welled up in her frigid voice, as little droplets of ice began to form on their robes. The Western Divine Region, the Dragon God Realm, the Dragon God Domain, the Dragon God Sacred Hall. In this place, which was once the most exalted and sacred place in the God Realm, one could no longer see hide nor hair of the dragon sovereigns and dragon gods who used to walk freely in this area. The entire vast Dragon God domain didn't contain the figure of a single dragon. They had all been expelled by the Qilin realm days ago. The vast fortune that the Dragon God realm had accumulated over 1,000,000 years was mostly hidden beneath the Dragon God domain. Innumerable barriers were being slowly broken down by the Qilin realm as they inched their way toward their goal. Furthermore, this enormous fortune certainly wasn't something that could be counted in a short amount of time. Its vastness far exceeded the average imagination. The Dragon God realm truly lives up to its name. In just a few short days, the amount of resources I've already counted has exceeded the total amount that the three king realms of the north have. Kai Waiao picked up a spatial jade in the shape of a pearl as she continued in her slow and unhurried manner. Just picking a few treasures from this place would allow me to hold a dozen grand coronation ceremonies, ones which would be so lavish and extravagant that they'd echo down through the ages. It looks like the number I had previously estimated was far too small. The difference between our northern divine region and the other three divine regions was truly like the difference between heaven and hell. The poverty of the northern divine region juxtaposed with the wealth and plenty of the three other regions. This incredibly large gap in resources would trigger the wrath of any dark, profound practitioner, and Kai Waiao was no exception. HMPH. Xianxia Yinger gave a cold snort as she shot her a glance. You are about to become the exalted empress of the entire God realm, someone who possesses unparalleled divine might. Everything in the universe is yours to control and use, so saying such things right now truly is boring and pointless. Kai Waiao replied in a soft and graceful voice. Compared to being empress, I'd rather be an imperial concubine who can serve the devil master without any worries or cares, someone who can simply focus on flirting with him and striving for his favor. Who cares if I'd be just a simple concubine? She batted her alluring eyes at Xianxia Yinger. Xianxia, if it strikes your fancy, how about I let you be empress instead? Tusk. Xianxia Yinger turned her jade face away from Kai Waiao without replying. Xianqi let out a rather awkward cough before asking, Devil Queen, you said you made a rather interesting discovery. What was it? The fact that Kai Waiao had been so anxious as to get Hua Jin to send a sound transmission to him meant that this definitely wasn't an ordinary discovery. Kai Waiao stretched out both hands before she waved them gracefully in the air. A cluster of black light appeared before dispersing, revealing a floating ancient tome the color of dark bronze that was about 1.5 meters long and wide. The ancient tome radiated a dense and heavy draconic aura. However, what was shocking about this tome was not the denseness of its draconic aura. It was how ancient it was. It was so ancient that it gave Xianqi the feeling that it shouldn't even exist in this present era. Xianxia Yinger's eyes flashed as she asked, Could it be the Dragon God Secret Tome? No, if it was the Dragon God Secret Tome, how would I dare to summon my Lord Devil Master in such a hasty fashion? Kai Waiao replied. This ancient tome has been bound by 9 seals, and each seal contains the lingering traces of the Dragon Monarch's soul. If he wasn't already dead, there's no way that I would be able to break all of these seals in such a short time. Furthermore, what this ancient tome records isn't the history of the Dragon God realm, it is the history of the ancient Dragon God tribe. What? A look of shock appeared on Xianxia Yinger's face, and even Xianqi's eyes bulged when she said those words. An ancient secret record, and it was something that the ancient dragon gods had left behind. Kai Waiao gently pushed the ancient tome toward Xianqi. I've already flipped through most of it. What is recorded in it is the history of the ancient dragon god tribe and many other ancient secrets that should have died with the era of the gods. She looked at Xianqi. These ancient secrets are nothing but information to other people, but they may be of some particular help to my Lord Devil Master, so you might want to peruse it slowly. He very quickly dispelled the barrier around the book. After that, both Xianqi and Xianxia Yinger used a thread of profound energy that was as gentle as they could muster to slowly open this ancient record left behind by the dragon gods, a miraculous existence in and of itself. The first page of this ancient tome recorded the commandments of the dragon god tribe, and the second page recorded the divine titles of each era's dragon god and the key draconic figures during their era. Even though they were called the dragon god tribe, every long and vast era of this tribe only had a single dragon god. Among the vast races of the true gods, the 2 words dragon god were only less exalted than the names of the 4 revered creation gods. It was a divine title that transcended all the other god clans. As for the ancient dragon god tribe, this referred to the dragon races directly under the dragon god's command. It was a title that was crowned with the divine title of the dragon god, but it was not one that their entire race adopted. As a result, the dragon gods of the current dragon god realm were not only disrespectful of the divine title of dragon god, it would have been viewed as the worst sort of blasphemy by the ancient dragon god tribe. The lifespan of the dragon gods was extremely long. Though it was not as long as the creation gods, it definitely far outstripped all other living creatures. As a result, during the long and vast ancient era which encapsulated the entirety of the dragon god tribe's history, there were only ever 6 dragon gods. Xianxia's eyes fixed on the records of the very last dragon god. It was the primordial azure dragon who had bestowed all of these gifts upon him. His name had been Long Yan. Even though the dragon gods had a very long lifespan, they also had an incredibly hard time reproducing. This was what was recorded in regards to the primordial azure dragon. From the moment the primordial azure dragon became the dragon god to the time he finally fell in battle during the War of the Gods and Devils, a full 30 million years had passed. However, he was only able to sire a single daughter. When he had obtained the dragon god's blood, dragon god soul, and dragon god marrow back on the profound sky continent, the very last request the primordial azure dragon's soul fragment made of him was to find his daughter who had been sealed into the heaven-punishing ancestral sword. This intense longing and worry had persisted all the way until the present age, and he had only been able to rest once he had entrusted this task to the heretic god's successor. As it turned out, this mighty dragon god actually only had this one daughter during his entire life. After he gave a sigh heavy with emotion, the corner of Xianxia's brow suddenly twitched. He only sired a daughter after 30 million years. Wait a minute. He had accumulated quite the harem himself over the years, and he had been sowing his seeds very diligently. But he only ever had one daughter, Wuxin, on the surface. He looked like he wasn't bothered by such a thing. He had actually been brooding about it all this while. Could it be that the root of his troubles had been the far too pure dragon god bloodline that he possessed? However, this ancient tome had not recorded his daughter's true name. It only addressed her as princess. It was recorded that her personality was gentle and retiring, and that she was as beautiful as a heavenly flower. She was admired by the creation goddess of life, Li Xiu, and she constantly made trips to the divine palace of life to accompany her. Xianxia's eyes lingered on this short passage concerning the dragon god's daughter for a very long time. After that, he finally flipped to the 3rd page of the ancient tome. However, this page did not record anything concerning the dragon god's history. Instead, the 4 creation gods, the heaven-punishing divine emperor, Mo-E profound treasure, the heaven-punishing ancestral sword. He was the head of the 4 mighty creation gods, and his divine power was unparalleled. It was above that of all the creation gods and devil emperors, and even though he could not obtain the acknowledgement of the heaven-punishing ancestral sword, he could still unleash its might. His personality was unbending and righteous in the extreme. He hated evil like it was a grudge. He never allowed relationships or feelings to bend his principles. He also was extremely repulsed by darkness' profound energy, and he could not tolerate any god growing close to the devil race. The heaven-punishing crown prince, Mosu was outstanding in both looks, temperament, and talent. None of the god children in the universe was his equal, and the heaven-punishing divine emperor loved him deeply. However, Mosu violated a taboo that must never be violated, so Mo-E personally buried him in the abyss of nothingness. His ruthless devotion to righteousness shocked the entire universe, but it also earned him universal praise and admiration. Xianxia's brow furrowed deeply. The tragedy of the heaven-smiting devil emperor and the heretic god had come at the hands of Mo-E, even the war of the gods and devils. The event which had destroyed an entire era was something that he had set the stage for. His extreme and unbending righteousness and hatred for evil were things that Xianxia had known about for a long time. However, he had never imagined that he was so unbending and principled that he would personally kill his own son for violating a taboo, and this was his most beloved son, whom he had personally made his crown prince at that. He was even willing to be this cold-hearted and ruthless to the beloved son he had named as his successor. In comparison, his ruthlessness toward Jai Yuan, Nai Xuan, and Nai Jai was simply far too normal. In order to obtain the fragment of the ancestral divine art that was in the heaven-smiting devil emperor's possession, the heaven-punishing divine emperor lured her to the eastern border of the primal chaos. After that, he used the heaven-punishing ancestral sword to tear a hole in the wall of primal chaos, before he unleashed its might once more to expel the heaven-smiting devil emperor and her heaven-smiting devil clan from the primal chaos. From then on, the 4 mighty devil emperors were reduced to 3. This momentous event shook the devil race violently and caused strife and unease to spread through the world. After that, The heaven-punishing divine emperor engaged in a fierce and terrible battle with the creation god of the elements for reasons unknown. When the battle ended, the creation god of the elements abandoned his title of creation god. He titled himself the heretic god and went into seclusion forevermore. The heaven-punishing divine emperor also went into a long seclusion after that battle. The dragon god visited him, but was turned away outside the doors of his divine palace. Later, the princess returned home, but she heard the creation goddess of life's lament first. The heaven-punishing divine emperor's vital energy had been exhausted, and he was only left with a mere 100,000 years left to live. It is suspected that he unleashed the might of the heaven-punishing ancestral sword once again during his battle with the creation god of the elements. The head of the true gods, the heaven-punishing divine emperor, went to his rest. His lifespan reached its end, and the last divine words he uttered were Mo-Su, his deceased son's name. The rest of the records regarding Mo-E were things that Yun-Chi was familiar with. In fact, in some cases, the information he possessed contained more truth and was even more detailed than what had been recorded in this ancient tome. For example, Mo-E's purported purpose for meeting the heaven-smiting devil emperor, the fragment of the ancestral divine art, had been a complete sham. The truth was that he wanted to completely extinguish all records of the taboo committed by her and the creation god of the elements. To think that the strongest creation god of ancient times died so early that he could not even participate in the war of the gods and devils, Xianxia said in a mocking voice. Did killing his own child shorten his lifespan? Yun-Chi did not reply. Instead, he continued reading the tome. Creation god of order, Xianxia profound treasure. The eternal heaven pearl. He was the creation god that created and maintained the laws of heaven and preserved the balance of the universe itself. His personality was calm and aloof, and he constantly sought to ensure justice and peace among the innumerable god clans. He hated all sorts of conflict and was fond of traveling the universe alone and acting independently. Even though he was a creation god, he did not build a divine palace, nor did he have any divine armies or divine guards at his command. The one who seeks to order the heavens and the earth must not have any selfish emotions or desires. These were the words that the creation god of order once said to the ancestral dragon god. Yun-Chi's lips screwed up, a creation god that did not allow himself to have any selfish emotions or desires. I wouldn't take that job even if it was offered up to me on a silver platter. No wonder the moon gods, star gods, and Brahma gods, whose divine inheritances the king realms of the East inherited all, served under Mo-E during the ancient era. It was actually because one of the mighty creation gods had chosen not to set up a divine palace or recruit any divine servants. He only had that eternal heaven pearl. Even though it had ended up founding the eternal heaven god realm, Yun-Chi had still destroyed it in the end. However, the records of the creation god of order did not mention his death, so it was clear that he had only died after the dragon god tribe had fallen. Primordial seal of life and death. The creation god who bore the power of realm creation, life creation, and light divine energy. She was a kind, merciful, and compassionate soul who possessed the holy power that could save all living and non-living things in the world, and an outer and inner beauty that transcended the limits of the immortal realm of creation itself. So great was her beauty that it was said that the ancestral god had bestowed 3/10 of the concept of beauty to the world, and the rest to Li Xiu when creating the universe. Stars and moons were but as bright as withered dust before her divine presence. Xianxia snorted disdainfully as she chased Yun-Chi's gaze. Not even the ancient dragon god tribe is immune to idolism, it seems. This level of exaggeration is wholly unnecessary. Yun-Chi subconsciously shot Xianxia's face a look. If he were to judge by countenance alone, Xianxia and Shen Zai were without a doubt the most beautiful women in the entire world, the kind that couldn't be surpassed even in one's dreams. While the scribe of ancient records of the dragon god spared no effort in praising the supernatural beauty of the ancient goddess of creation. He didn't think that the ancient goddess of creation would be able to surpass Xianxia or Shen Zai in terms of countenance and figure, even if she were to reappear in this world. Probably, both the heaven-punishing divine emperor and the creation god of the elements were madly in love with Li Xiu, but their chase ultimately didn't bear fruit. In the end, the heaven-punishing divine emperor chose duty over love, for his lineage cannot end with him, and made the empress of the heaven Luo divine race his queen. In just 10,000 years, his harem had swelled to a massive 30,000 concubines. On the other hand, the creation god of the elements never gave up, so he never found another partner. It truly was a shame that a god like him was alone until the very end. Xianxia sighed inside his head. The truth was, the creation god of the elements fell in love with the heaven-smiting devil emperor afterward, but their forbidden, no, taboo love was destined never to be known or blessed by the world, their daughter most of all. Now that he thought about it, the one thing that still triggered the returned heaven-smiting devil emperor hard despite having experienced practically every form of mortal coil, was the fact that the heretic god used to be deeply in love with Xianxia. After all, even she was a woman before she was a devil emperor. A terrible war broke out, and the universe suffered. To eliminate light divine energy once and for all, the nine-fiend devil emperor stole the primordial seal of life and death, breached dimensions, descended upon the divine palace of life, and scattered the nine-fiend devil poison. The divine palace of life fell, and the divine aura of life was never more. All the realms wept and raged at the death of the creation goddess of life. However, the body of the deceased Xianxia was never found. Perhaps it was because her body gave off light divine aura, and the nine-fiend devil race destroyed it out of fear. If Mo-E was the first creation god to pass away naturally, then Xianxia was the first creation god to perish unnaturally. After all, her light divine energy was the power the devil race feared the most. But her combat strength was also the weakest of the 4 creation gods and 4 devil emperors. According to the Ice Phoenix divine spirit, Xianxia was the most respected and loved creation god of all the creation gods. The Ice Phoenix divine spirit herself was forever proud that she once served under the creation goddess of life. The realms truly must have wept when news of her death spread far and wide. Creation god of the elements, Xianxia, profound treasure, world piercer. This line alone told Xianxia that even the dragon god tribe wasn't aware that the heretic god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor had exchanged their heavenly profound treasures with each other. He was the creation god with complete mastery over the 5 elements, water, fire, wind, thunder, and earth, and could transcend even the laws of the elements. He lived for battle and made it his duty to protect everything that he believed was worth protecting. He was open-minded, easygoing, unfettered by customs, and untouched by the arrogance of a creation god. He enjoyed exploring the realms and spreading his kindness everywhere. He was close friends with every dragon god to have ever lived, and our tribe owed him a favor that might not be repaid even in 10,000 lifetimes. He was extremely single-minded when it came to love, and his love for the creation goddess of life was absolute. His loyalty never failed to impress the dragon gods. For an unknown reason, the creation god of the elements challenged the heaven-punishing divine emperor to battle at the heart of absolute beginning. Maybe it was because he was furious at the heaven-punishing divine emperor's act of exiling the heaven-smiting devil emperor from the universe. It certainly broke the balance between the 2 races and caused no end of trouble later on. No one had the power to approach the battle, so no one knew the final outcome. After the battle, the creation god of the elements discarded his own title and began calling himself the heretic god. At the same time, he went into seclusion and almost never appeared to the world anymore. Even when the dragon god tried to pay him a visit, all they got was a request to leave. The dragon god once said this: "The heretic god's sorrow is endless, and his heart is as lightless as dust itself. All that he seeks now is to be forgotten by the world." After the legendary battle, the heaven-punishing divine emperor's lifespan abruptly shortened by a drastic amount. It was suspected that he had used the ancestral sword during the battle. If this is true, does this mean that the divine power of the creation god of the elements actually exceeded the heaven-punishing divine emperors? Also, it was a well-known fact that unleashing the ancestral sword's power by force came at a massive cost of one's lifespan. Why did the heaven-punishing divine emperor go so far just to defeat the creation god of the elements? Surely the title of the strongest god emperor wasn't worth that much. And so the heaven-punishing divine emperor passed away, and the heretic god secluded himself from the world. The creation god of order and the creation goddess of life never spoke even a word regarding the battle. The truth of the matter might very well remain hidden for eternity. Xianxia sighed in his head again. The truth of that time was unknown even to the powerful dragon god tribe, and yet he, a person of the future, had come to know everything. In order to destroy a taboo that he absolutely couldn't tolerate, one that was created by the creation god of the elements and the heaven-smiting devil emperor themselves. The heaven-punishing divine emperor had deceived, broken his own principles, and even sacrificed his own lifespan to unleash the ancestral sword. The battle between the heaven-punishing divine emperor and the creation god of the elements had directly decided the fate of the forbidden existence that was Nijai. Obviously, the heaven-punishing divine emperor couldn't have imagined that he, the so-called strongest god emperor of the universe, was actually Nixuan's inferior. As it turned out, the devil god forbidden tome, the heretic god arts, co-created by the creation god of the elements, and the heaven-smiting devil emperor was a power that transcended even the strongest creation god in the world. The irony that the heaven-punishing divine emperor, the living symbol of the absolute divide between God and devil, must have felt when the realization struck him must have been unbelievable. After unleashing the ancestral sword to defeat the creation god of the elements, the heaven-punishing divine emperor knew shame and accepted half a compromise. Nijai's devilish soul would be eliminated, but not her divine soul. The truth of her origin would be forever hidden as well. Thus Nijai became Honger and Yuer. Nixuan entrusted Honger to the sword spirit god clan, but couldn't bring himself to kill Yuer no matter what. Thus he hid her in the darkest abyss of Blue Pole Star, and suffered an unimaginable amount of pain, sorrow, guilt, regret, powerlessness, and disappointment every day. His bitterness ran so deep that he even discarded his title and secluded himself from the world once and for all. Nixuan must have visited the now princess of the sword spirit god clan, the eternally happy Ling Wanhu, Honger, now and then, but he would never in a million years dare to visit Yuer. Only he would know the true depths of his pain and sorrow. Xianxia Yinger said, according to the current world's records, the official cause behind the great war between the gods and the devils was because the devil race had taken the masterless heaven-punishing ancestral sword for themselves. In reality, the true cause was the heaven-punishing divine emperor himself. The fury of the devil race, the collapse of balance between the two races, the passing of one creation god and the seclusion of another. Even if the heaven-punishing ancestral sword hadn't become the spark that lit the fire, something else would have. HMPH, how ironic. Even better, this self-proclaimed emperor of the righteous way most likely thought that he had sacrificed himself for the betterment of the world. He would never even consider that he had made a mistake. Xianxia Yinger snorted coldly. Zhou Zuzi is but a child before this man. The four great creation gods recorded by the ancient dragon god tribe were without a doubt far more detailed and accurate than the current world was familiar with. Moreover, thanks to certain truths only he knew, he was able to paint a clearer picture of the creation gods in his head. Yun Qi wordlessly flipped the ancient record to the 4th page. Just like before, this page didn't record the history of the dragon gods. It was about the 7 great heavenly profound treasures. Yun Qi's concentration immediately increased several-fold compared to before. The 4 great creation gods were nothing but ancient legends and forgotten dust at this point. The 7 great heavenly profound treasures, on the other hand, were still well and existing in the present day. Every heavenly profound treasure, except the heaven-punishing ancestral sword, had appeared at least once in the current universe. In fact, he was in possession of 4 of them right now. The primordial seal of life and death, the eternal heaven pearl, the sky poison pearl, and the mirror of samsara. The world piercer was also in Shui Meiyan's hands. The heaven-punishing ancestral sword had never appeared in this world, and the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations was forever lost with Jasmine. The first heavenly profound treasure, heaven-punishing ancestral sword, birthed from the yang side of the heart of the primal chaos, it was the purest, strongest, and most sacred divine sword in the entire primal chaos realm. It was the ancestor of all artifacts, and it was said to contain the divine power of the ancestral god themselves. It was strong enough to violate even the laws of the world. The heaven-punishing ancestral sword had never had a true master, probably because it contained the ancestral god's divine power, meaning that no one in the world was worthy of becoming its master. It allowed only Mo-E, the heaven-punishing divine emperor, to carry it because the man had an upright soul. It was also how his title, heaven-punishing divine emperor, came to be. The divine power of the ancestral god could only be wielded by the ancestral god themselves. Even if the heaven-punishing ancestral sword acknowledged Mo-E as its carrier, he couldn't use it without grave consequences. Using the heaven-punishing ancestral sword by force would cost a creation god 30% of their lifespan, 90% for a god, and immediate annihilation for a mortal. Xianxia was shocked. A creation god was, to put it bluntly, almost immortal. And yet, it still cost them 30% of their lifespan to unleash the power of the heaven-punishing ancestral sword just once. Moe had used the heaven-punishing ancestral sword twice in his life. Once to exile the heaven-smiting devil emperor and the 900 devil gods from the primal chaos, and once more to defeat the creation god of the elements, who successfully cultivated the heretic god Forbidden Tome. That was 60% of his lifespan gone just like that. It was no wonder that he, the strongest creation god of that time, died sooner than anybody else. The cost only grew worse from there. A true god would lose 90% of their lifespan if they were to use the heaven-punishing ancestral sword. Even an unusually young true god would be near death upon using it. The heaven-punishing ancestral sword could slay any enemy, but the wielder would be near death as well. It was a true double-edged sword. After the heaven-punishing divine emperor had died, the heaven-punishing ancestral sword had vanished for a time. When the heaven-punishing ancestral sword suddenly reappeared at the heart of the primal chaos, the realms trembled, and the devil race shook. The ancestral sword must not fall into the devil's hands, so the divine races who once served the heaven-punishing divine emperor mobilized all their forces to protect the sword. But the devil race's assault turned out to be 10 times more frantic than expected, and the resulting war was so terrible that universe itself was almost destroyed. The terrible war between the gods and the devils was lit by the emergence of the heaven-punishing ancestral sword. But the dragon god said that it was but one of the many other sparks that could have lit the fuse. At that point, the devil race's hatred and resentment had deepened to the point where anything would have sparked the war. Our entire tribe had to participate in the war. Countless realms died, and blood dyed the skies red. The heaven-punishing god race entrusted the heaven-punishing ancestral sword to us so that they may fight without worry. When will the apocalypse end? In the end, the devil race discovered that we were hiding the heaven-punishing ancestral sword. Countless devils emerged to battle our realms. Devilish poisons devoured countless lives. The sky turned black with devilish energy, and the stench of death was as thick as the abyss. The despair was unspeakable. The dragon god was grievously wounded. His kin has perished, and despair encroaches ever so closer. The princess took injuries that almost claimed her life, and even worse, a devilish poison invaded her soul. The dragon god wept like a babe until suddenly, he shattered the dragon god's seal and released the wisp of ancestral god divine energy contained within it. But instead of using it to slay the devils, he used it as a medium to seal the princess' dying body into the heaven-punishing ancestral sword and toss it into the well of samsara. However, to reclaim the heaven-punishing ancestral sword, the crazed devils actually attacked the well of samsara until it was completely destroyed, and so the cycle of rebirth came to an eternal end. Not even fate knows where the heaven-punishing ancestral sword and the princess have gone. The line marked the end of the records regarding the heaven-punishing ancestral sword. In fact, the latter paragraphs of the text, especially the last couple of lines, grew increasingly weak and disorderly until they were almost unrecognizable. Xianxia didn't need to be there to know that the divine dragon who transcribed the ancient record was near death at the time. Unintentionally, the shadow of the heaven-punishing ancestral sword cast a pall over the end of the era of gods and devils. And so the cycle of rebirth came to an eternal end. Xianxia stared at the line for a very, very long time. As it turned out, the legend of samsara wasn't a legend after all. The cycle of rebirth was actually a real thing during the ancient times, and its medium, the well of samsara, was guarded by none other than the dragon god tribe. The well of samsara had been destroyed during the war of gods and devils and turned into a dead well. Since then, the cycle of rebirth was no more in this world. Xianxia had come into contact with a fake cycle of rebirth once while he was still on the profound sky continent. Masterminded by Xunyu and Wenchen, Fen Juchen had been forced to experience a millennium-long samsara of eternal night. However, Xianxia later discovered, while reading the illusory devil tome of eternal night, that the so-called forbidden art of samsara was really just a taboo way of sealing and grafting one's vitality and soul onto a chosen person. Not only did the cruel process violate the natural order, its chosen host would always be missing some parts of their vitality and soul. It was why Fen Juchen became extremely manic, and why his life only seemed to be filled with tragedy. Even if he somehow survived one death, another would claim him all too soon. However, Yun-Chi had experienced a rebirth despite living in a world where the well of samsara was supposedly dead. It was even a special kind of rebirth that was completely different from the memories, records, and even the legends of samsara. The well of samsara, the mirror of samsara. Right now, the well in the forbidden land of samsara was none other than the ancient well of samsara itself. However, it seemed to be a dead well that could never be resurrected by any power. The last time the heaven-punishing ancestral sword appeared was in the ancient dragon god realm, and it was tossed into the well of samsara so that the devil race wouldn't be able to get their hands on it, Xianxia said suddenly. Similar records of the event also exist in the Brahma monarch god realm and many other king realms, so this part is most likely the truth. I'm surprised to read that the ancient daughter of the dragon god is sealed inside the ancestral sword, though. A lot of people must have tried to search for the ancestral sword, right? Yun-Chi asked. If it was another star realm, then believe me when I say that every inch of the land would have been scoured 1,000,000 times over, Xianxia replied indifferently. This is the dragon god realm, however. Who in the world would dare to invade this place? That being said, the dragon god realm themselves probably never stopped searching for the sword. The forbidden land of samsara especially must have been searched again and again. What does it matter if they found the heaven-punishing ancestral sword, though? Unless the sword acknowledges the wielder as its master, its powers will greatly reduce the wielder's lifespan. Going by the ancient standards, all beings in the current universe are considered mortals. This means that using the heaven-punishing ancestral sword by force is akin to committing suicide. What would be the point even if the sword possesses the power to destroy the primal chaos itself? Of course there is a point, Yun-Chi said quietly. Assuming that I found the sword 4 years ago, I wouldn't have hesitated to destroy the world at the cost of my own life. Xianxia frowned deeply before exhaling a bit. Her eyebrows relaxed slowly as she said, to many people, this so-called #1 heavenly profound treasure is not worth even a hair on your person. You will do well to remember my words if you ever think such thoughts in the future. Yun-Chi couldn't help but shoot her a strange look. Xianxia immediately looked away and added stiffly, I'm speaking on behalf of your wife and daughter. I know, I'll remember it, Yun-Chi nodded lightly. The reply was so serious that it was almost obedient. It surprised Xianxia so much that she didn't know how to reply for a time. Yun-Chi returned his gaze to the ancient records of the dragon god. Yun-Chi had already known that the daughter of the dragon god was sealed inside the heaven-punishing ancestral sword as far back as the profound sky continent. Judging from the primordial azure dragon's story and last words, he most likely had succeeded in transforming his daughter into the heaven-punishing ancestral sword spirit. He would have succumbed to despair and passed away a long time ago if that wasn't the case, much less persisted until the current time. The real surprise of this record was the fact that the dragon god seal contained a wisp of the ancestral god's divine power. It was probably the ancient dragon god tribe's greatest secret. It was the highest power that transcended even the primordial after all. Using the ancestral god's divine power as the medium, he had supposedly formed a connection with the ancestral sword's internal space, fused his daughter and the ancestral sword's consciousness together, and transformed her into the ancestral sword's sword spirit. Assuming that they shared perfect compatibility, the primordial azure dragon's effort certainly had a theoretical chance at success. For example, He Ling had become the pearl spirit of both the sky poison pearl and the eternal heaven pearl. On the other hand, it was the heaven-punishing ancestral sword, a heavenly profound treasure that was higher than both the sky poison pearl and the eternal heaven pearl. No one could say what the final outcome might be. One thing was certain, though, the heaven-punishing ancestral sword was one of the few, perhaps only, supreme creations that were on par with the ancestral god in terms of existence. Therefore, a power that could truly destroy it didn't exist before, now, or in the future. In other words, assuming that the dragon god's daughter successfully became the ancestral sword's sword spirit, she too would have become an eternal existence. She and the heaven-punishing ancestral sword would have survived until the current world unless she severed that tie herself. However, assuming that it was a success, it begged the question of why she hadn't appeared to the world for so many years. and why she hadn't sought out the dragon god's soul who had lived 1,000,000 years in his pitiful state just to see her once more. Also, the well of Samsara, the forbidden land of Samsara, the dragon god's daughter, follower of the creation god of life. The forbidden land of Samsara, the divine miracle of life. No, it cannot be. If she truly is the sword spirit of the ancestral sword, there is no chance that Long Bai could have harmed her. What am I thinking? There's no way she could be. Yun-Chi shook his head unconsciously to dispel a certain woman who, for some reason, overlapped with his imagined image of the dragon god's daughter. But maybe, just maybe, if he pretended that all the inconsistencies and contradictions didn't exist, and that it really was her, could she perhaps, still live in a form that no one from the current world could understand? Yun-Chi, Yun-Chi! It took several cries of his name to finally break Yun-Chi out of his reverie. Why did you blank out all of a sudden? I was thinking about the whereabouts of the ancestral sword, Yun-Chi replied. Bullshit, Kai-na Yinger fed accusingly. I should have brought a mirror with me. You were obviously thinking about some woman just now, Yun-Chi. Suddenly, Kai-na Yinger pushed Yun-Chi roughly to a sitting position on the floor. There was a rush of fragrance and a flash of fabric. And before he knew it, Kai-na Yinger was sitting on his left thigh and resting her long, smooth legs on his right knee. She breathed out both forcefully and softly into his ears. You will not think about another woman while I'm with you. Ever since Long Bai had died, and news of the Blue Pole star's safety had become known to Kai-na Yinger, the woman had become a lot more impudent than she used to be. Yun-Chi rolled his eyes at her briefly before pulling her long skirt upward and exposing her legs. They were easily prettier than snow itself. Yun-Chi moved his finger upward until his entire arm was buried deep within her clothes. The indescribable sensation in his hand was 10,000 times better than even the most flawless sheep-fat white jade. Kai-na Yinger's eyes misted over with lust as she watched a hand-shaped lump running up and down under her clothes freely. When she bit her lips lightly and looked at Yun-Chi, though, she discovered that he had turned his attention back to the ancient records of the dragon god once more. Annoyed, she took revenge by stabbing his ear with her tongue. Be good. Still running a hand up and down Kai-na Yinger's skirt wantonly, he flipped the ancient records of the dragon god to a new page with the other hand. Second, heavenly profound treasure. Evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. Birthed from the yin side of the heart of the primal chaos, it was a terrifying, devilish wheel that was born with the darkest and most wicked of energies. It was said to harbor all of the negative energies that there had been since the conception of the primal chaos, and that its power was the flip side of the ancestral god's divine power. At full strength, its power was comparable to that of the ancestral sword. To date, the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations has never had a true master. According to the devil race, all 4 devil emperors had attempted at some point in their lives to control the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. However, they all failed and suffered varying degrees of backlash. The evil infant's personality could only be described as temperamental, egocentric, unreasonable, cruel, violent, and uncontrollable. Most of all, it was absolutely unpredictable in its ways, and it has caused countless disasters before it was sealed. It had always been a matter of time before it became a great threat to all. Thankfully, it was also as childish as a newborn, and it easily let down its guard when persuaded the right way. It was easily lured into the great formation set up by the 4 great devil emperors and the devil gods, and sealed before it could unleash its devastating power, thus ending the threat it could have posed. Not only that, the 4 devil emperors vowed never to unlock its seal unless they were facing a grave crisis. Temperamental, egocentric, unreasonable, cruel, and violent. Yun-Chi frowned a little when he read this line. While in the god realm of absolute beginning, he had interacted with the evil infant multiple times through Jasmine. As the records stated, he had found its appearance, voice, and speech to be very similar to that of a female child. Although its temper wasn't the best, the only impression he had gotten from it was overwhelming cuteness. Not only did he sense no dark or foreboding aura from it, it practically obeyed Jasmine's every word. When he had asked it why it had destroyed the world, it had replied with puffed cheeks that it was because it was sealed for no reason for countless years. Why wouldn't it take revenge for all the years it had lost? However, no matter how hard he recalled their interactions, he just couldn't imagine the evil infant being a temperamental, egocentric, unreasonable, cruel, and violent creature. Was the record inaccurate, or was the evil infant just pretending all this time? But it didn't matter, or rather, it no longer mattered, Both Jasmine and the evil infant had been forever lost to this world. At first, the devil race was able to push back the god race and gain the upper hand. However, although the heaven-punishing god emperor was no more, his divine clan and his divine protectors rallied quickly and unleashed the power they had secreted away all this time. Part of the reason the god race was so united was due to the murder of the creation goddess of life. Using himself as bait, the creation god of order was able to entrap all three devil emperors in the eternal heaven thousand-level realm. Since then, the devil race suffered defeat after defeat until it turned into a near-total collapse. Even then, the devil emperors still weren't able to escape the eternal heaven thousand-level realm. With no one to guide them, the despairing devils actually chose to release the seal on the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. When the evil infant appeared, both the gods and the devils wept. After hijacking the devil of eternal night, the evil infant seized control of the sky-poisoned pearl, targeted every divine and devilish presence in the world, and unleashed myriad tribulations. A nightmare that was beyond the ability of any language to describe. The eternal heaven pearl collapsed. Not even the creation god of order and the three devil emperors were able to escape the poisoning. What a sorrowful day it was. Death, destruction, or maybe even the end of everything. The heretic god might be the only one who could escape this calamity using the world piercer. If no one else, we could only pray that the heretic god survives as the last hope of the god race. After that, all the records regarding the evil infant were dyed in a hue of dark despair. Had the heretic god had the world piercer at the time, he definitely would have had a chance at escaping the calamity. Unfortunately, no one knew that the heretic god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor had exchanged their heavenly profound treasures with each other as proof of their love. Worse, after the heaven-smiting devil emperor was exiled from the world, the utterly disheartened heretic god had returned the sky-poisoned pearl to the surviving devils of the heaven-smiting devil emperor. As a result, the heretic god failed to escape the world-ending calamity and ultimately perished to myriad tribulations. Before he died, he resealed the exhausted evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations and its puppet, the devil of eternal night, Moon's slaughter devil sovereign, and left behind all the inheritances necessary to save the world after he was gone. On the other hand, thanks to the world piercer, the heaven-smiting devil emperor everyone thought to be dead survived the harsh environment outside of the primal chaos, and even made it back to the world for a time. Fate truly was a fickle and unpredictable thing. Phew! Xianxia exhaled a little to vent the complex feelings circulating inside his heart right now. After that, he gave his scent-filled hand a sniff before slipping it back under Qianai Yinger's skirt and restarted his reading once more. Third heavenly profound treasure. Primordial seal of life and death. Birthed from the heart of the primal chaos, the primordial seal of life and death was a manifestation of the oldest of primordial energy. Its energy was linked to the primordial universe, and as long as the primordial universe continued to exist, it would never disappear. Living beings who bathed in its primordial energy were immortal and would never run out of lifespan. It was held by the creation goddess of life, and she was blessed with its gift of immortality as a matter of course. The primordial seal of life and death vanished after the creation goddess of life had passed away, and it was rumored that the heavenly profound treasure had fallen into the nine fiend devil race's hands. It was a complete tragedy. Fourth heavenly profound treasure. Eternal heaven pearl. Birthed from the gaps of primordial time, it carried a literal world of endless space within it, and its laws of time functioned independently from those of primal chaos. It was rumored that it could interfere with and disrupt the laws of time of the primal chaos realm by force. It was held by the creation god of order. Using himself as bait, the creation god of order was able to entrap all three devil emperors in the eternal heaven thousand-level realm. Due to the effects of myriad tribulations, the eternal heaven-divine realm collapsed, and its divine powers were extinguished. There was no telling if its divine light would shine again in the unknown future. Ling, what is this? Eternal heaven thousand-level realm? Xianxia asked using his soul voice. The devil race must have been furious after Mo-E exiled the heaven-smiting devil emperor and the 900 devil gods. But they didn't wage war right away because the devil race was already weaker than the god race even when they were whole. After losing heaven-smiting and the 900 devil gods, their chances of defeating the god race in a direct confrontation could only be described as abysmal. However, after the pillar of the god race, the heaven-punishing god emperor had passed away, and the powerful creation god of elements had gone into seclusion. The only creation gods left on the god race's side was Xianxia, the creation god of order who was infamous for his loner personality, independent actions, and complete lack of any authority or command, and Li Xiu, the weakest creation god in terms of combat strength. Naturally, the simmering devil race wasn't going to miss out on such a golden opportunity. So the great war between gods and devils broke out with the heaven-punishing ancestral sword as the trigger. However, looking at the ancient records of the dragon god, the ancient devil race had still underestimated the god race's strength. Mo-E might have passed away, but his heaven-punishing god clan and the other divine clans who served as his protectors were still incredibly powerful. The fact that most of the king realm inheritances that existed today could be traced directly to Mo-E's protector clans was proof of that. It also proved that Mo-E had been preparing to go to war against the devil race for a very, very long time. There was also one more critical factor that contributed to the horrible defeat of the devil race. During the latter half of the Great War, the three cores of the devil race, the strongest dark profound practitioners of them all, the original Darkness Devil Emperor, the Nirvana Devil Emperor, and the Nine Fiend Devil Emperor, had all been lured into the eternal Heaven Thousand-level realm and trapped. It wasn't until the evil infant had unwittingly destroyed the eternal Heaven-Divine realm with myriad tribulations that they were finally freed. But by then, it was already too late. The outcome had been inevitable from the moment the devil race lost their leaders and their greatest combat strength. After losing again and again and being driven to a dead end, and their devil emperors looking nowhere close to returning, the devil race ultimately decided to unseal the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. The eternal heaven pearl was ranked fourth of the 7 great heavenly profound treasures, inferior only to the heaven-punishing ancestral sword, the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations, and the primordial seal of life and death. This placement had actually puzzled Xianxia for a very long time. While the eternal heaven-divine realm was pretty special, he couldn't imagine that it was more special than the Sky Poison Pearl or the World Piercer. That was no longer the case. After learning that this never-before-heard eternal Heaven Thousand-level realm had been powerful enough to stall 3 devil emperors until the end of the war, he couldn't help but ask He Ling about it. He Ling replied, "The eternal Heaven Pearl's time-manipulating function isn't limited to just time expansion. It could both expand and compress time. The latter is far harder to achieve than the former." Xianxia understood her meaning immediately. "You're saying that the eternal Heaven Thousand-level realm can accelerate time as well?" "Amen," He Ling replied affirmatively. "The inner world of the eternal Heaven Pearl can be unfolded into the time-expanding eternal Heaven Divine realm. On the other hand, it can also be compressed and folded by 10, 100, or 1,000 levels. With the current universe's limitations, the eternal Heaven Pearl can barely achieve the 10-level realm, much less 20. As for the eternal Heaven Thousand-level realm, the ancient creation god of order was the only person who could have done it. A person who was trapped at the heart of the eternal Heaven Thousand-level realm must break through a total of 1,000 mini-worlds to escape. However, it is also incredibly easy to lose one's way while escaping. The possibility that the escaper might sink deeper into the eternal Heaven Thousand-level realm instead of escaping is very real. Even worse, the time inside the eternal Heaven Thousand-level realm flows 1,000 times faster than normal. Xianxia couldn't help but be shocked by what he just heard. The power of these heavenly profound treasures, especially when they were at their full strength during the ancient era, was truly beyond the understanding of the current universe. To be locked behind 1,000 mini-worlds, while time passed 1,000 times faster than normal. The experience could only be described as an absolute nightmare. To give an example, the 3 devil emperors could have struggled for just a century inside the eternal Heaven Thousand-level realm, but 100,000 years would have passed in the real world. This was the true might and terror of the eternal Heaven Pearl. It was almost a shame that it would never return to its former glory. That being said, the main function of the eternal Heaven Pearl was still its ability to expand time. It was best used as a way to achieve a miraculous leap in power in a short real-world time, and overcome certain obstacles that should have been insurmountable before. Barring extremely unique circumstances, there was practically no one who would want to accelerate time while being inside the eternal Heaven Pearl. It would have been a complete waste of one's life and time in the outside world, or so Xianxia thought. Fifth, heavenly profound treasure. Sky poison pearl, birthed from the bottom of the primal abyss of the devil race. It was absolutely yin and poisonous, but also absolutely pure and clean at the same time. Its inner space was infinite, and it possessed the vast power to both poison and purify. It could be used to bury both gods and devils in an abyss of poison, or it could be used to purify all evils in but a flash. It was held by the devil race's heaven-smiting devil emperor. Its strongest poison was called the heaven-wounding thought-severing poison. After the heaven-smiting devil emperor shared its breath with the devil race, the latter used it as a template to create many more terrible devilish poisons, such as the eternally severed samsara, 9 fiend god destroyer, absolute god-slaying poison, sleep of eternal darkness. Judging from the many records about the great war of gods and devils, one of the devil race's strongest and most terrible weapons was its devilish poison. The sword spirit god clan Hunger was living with had been destroyed by devilish poisons. Even the creation goddess of life had died to a devilish poison. To date, the scars left behind by the many ancient devilish poisons of that war still survived until today's southern divine region. It was only now that Xianxia realized that the powerful devilish poisons had come from the power of the sky poison pearl. Even the deadly absolute god-slaying poison jasmine had originated from the sky poison pearl. The more he read the ancient records of the dragon god, the more he thought that a heavenly profound treasure at its complete state was absolutely terrifying. Even in ancient times, it could single-handedly change the tides of a war. Somehow, the Eternal Night Devil clan produced the sky poison pearl that should have vanished together with the heaven-smiting devil emperor for eternity. When it glowed a horrific blue, the only good news amidst all the bad news was that the sky poison pearl hadn't accepted a new master. So the Eternal Night Devil clan was unable to unleash the heaven-wounding thought-severing poison. The consequences would have been unimaginable otherwise. When the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations hijacked the sky poison pearl, it actually managed to manifest the myriad tribulations recorded in the ancestral devil canon. The gods, the devils, the heavens. In that moment, everything fell into an inescapable tribulation of despair. Naturally, the poison spirit of the sky poison pearl didn't survive the hijacking of the evil infant. Why hadn't the sky poison pearl left with the heaven-smiting devil emperor? How did this myriad tribulations of despair happen? Even Xianxia couldn't help but feel for the ancients when he read the final line under the sky poison pearl. Had the heaven-smiting devil emperor or the heretic god been in possession of the sky poison pearl at the time, the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations would never have been able to hijack it. And without it, no matter how powerful the evil infant had been, the calamity it wrought shouldn't have been enough to end an entire era. No matter how you looked at it, the heaven-punishing God Emperor was the root cause of all these disasters. Sixth, heavenly profound treasure. World Piercer. Birthed from the very first spatial gap of the primordial universe, the World Piercer was the heavenly profound treasure with the greatest divine power of space. It enabled creation, relocation, and instant penetration of space. It could also interfere with, disrupt, and destroy any spatial laws, including the walls of primal chaos, or so the legends claimed. It was held by the creation god of elements, Xuan. The world dragon city, gifted to our tribe by the creation god of elements himself, was also marked with the power of the World Piercer. According to the ancestral god canon, the World Piercer and the World Piercer's needle spirit had been birthed side by side from the primordial universe. Therefore, if the owner of the World Piercer possessed a power that also originated from the primordial universe, they could channel their own energy through the medium that was the World Piercer's needle spirit, and use its spatial divine powers by force. However, this method of usage would greatly damage the World Piercer's needle spirit, and especially the user, so it shouldn't be considered unless there was literally no other choice. Xianxia frowned a bit when he read this. He was recalling what Shui Meiyin said when introducing the World Piercer to him. Senior Devil Emperor did not want the World Piercer to accompany her into her eternal exile from the primal chaos, so she handed it over to me before she left. The World Piercer was born in the core of the primordial universe, so she said these words to me. Only your stainless divine soul, birthed by the primordial energies of this universe, can nurture and temporarily awaken the needle spirit that slumbers within the World Piercer. The stainless divine soul was then used as a medium to connect to the needle's spirit, which had been roused from its slumber for a little while, and I would then proceed to use my own strength to forcibly activate the world piercer's dimensional powers. Shui Meiyan's words both matched and contradicted some parts of this record. According to Shui Meiyan, her stainless divine soul was the only thing in the current universe that could temporarily awaken the needle's spirit from its slumber. After the needle's spirit was awakened, she could then empower the heavenly profound treasure with her own energy and execute its spatial divine power by force. It was why the heaven-smiting devil emperor had purposely left it behind for her. However, according to this passage, anyone with a power that originates from the primordial universe could pull it off. In the current world, as far as he knew, there were 3 people who were blessed with the power of the primordial universe: Yue Wugu with the divine stainless body, Xia Qingyu with the heart of snow-glazed glass, and Shui Meiyan with the divine stainless soul. However, both Yue Wugu and Xia Qingyu had passed away. Shui Meiyan was the only one left who could still use the world piercer. It was perfectly normal for present knowledge to deviate from what was known during the ancient times. Also, records weren't necessarily 100% accurate just because they were ancient. In fact, it had been proven many times over that certain ancient records contained distorted facts or complete lies. Therefore, Yun Qi didn't dwell on it for too long before moving on to the 7th and last record regarding the heavenly profound treasures. 7th heavenly profound treasure, Mirror of Samsara. The Mirror of Samsara's origin is unknown. As far as the world is aware, this heavenly profound treasure has never appeared. If its name wasn't etched in the ancestral god canon itself, no one would even believe that it was real. It is rumored that the reason the Mirror of Samsara hasn't appeared to the world is because it was inside the Well of Samsara itself. It was the source of the Well of Samsara's divine power of rebirth. It is rumored that the core power of the Mirror of Samsara was even greater than the Well of Samsara, that it allowed someone to travel the cycle of rebirth and tamper with cause and effect itself. It is rumored that the Mirror of Samsara would fall into slumber for 20 years every time its powers were activated, because the Well of Samsara also could only perform one reincarnation per 20 years. It is rumored that the Mirror of Samsara was birthed together with the ancestral god, and that the ancestral god was its one true master even before the other 6 heavenly profound treasures. The dragon god once said that none of the 4 creation gods had ever known or come into contact with the Mirror of Samsara. The Well of Samsara is dead, both gods and devils have perished, the universe itself is dying, and still the Mirror of Samsara is nowhere to be seen. If there truly is no cycle of rebirth left in this world, then does that mean we are about to meet an eternal end? Afraid to miss even the slightest detail regarding the Mirror of Samsara, Yun Qi read the passages extraordinarily slowly and carefully. It was because the turning point of his fate had begun from a most unusual samsara. He wanted to know exactly how he had reincarnated, from the profound sky continent to the azure cloud continent, then from the azure cloud continent back to the profound sky continent. Was it his 2 deaths that triggered the Mirror of Samsara's power of rebirth, just as Jasmine had speculated a long time ago? According to this record, the Mirror of Samsara had never appeared in ancient times. The ancients guessed that it sat at the core of the Well of Samsara, but no one had ever been able to confirm the authenticity of the rumors. So, why had it suddenly appeared in the current world? The sky poison pearl was left behind on Blue Pole Star by the heretic god, but the Mirror of Samsara obviously wasn't related to him. Moreover, he was 100% certain that he had never been the master of the Mirror of Samsara, now or before. Throughout the years, he had tried everything to elicit a response from the Mirror of Samsara to no avail. He couldn't even slip his consciousness into its inner world. So why had his deaths triggered its power of rebirth, when such a thing had never happened in the past? Suddenly, an odd idea entered his mind. Maybe his death hadn't been the reason the Mirror of Samsara came active at all. Maybe an actual person or power had been behind his rebirths all this time. That frightening thought squeezed Yun Qi's heart for a second before he chased it away. "You're blanking out again?" Kayana Yinger bent forward and trapped Yun Qi's palm between her smooth thighs, refusing to let go. The Mirror of Samsara. It once appeared in the god realm for a short while before vanishing without a trace. Since the ancient records mentioned it too, I suppose that it wasn't just a rumor after all. Jasmine had mentioned the Mirror of Samsara's sudden appearance in the god realm as well. He just couldn't understand what was going on here. Why did the mirror of Samsara suddenly manifest in the god realm? And why did it vanish seemingly without reason and appear in the illusory demon realm of the blue pole star of all places? The mirror of Samsara might be ranked last among the 7 heavenly profound treasures, but everything about it, be it in the past or the present, was shrouded in a thick fog of mystery. The page after the mirror of Samsara was about the long history of the dragon god tribe, the core races of both the gods and the devils, and certain significant events pertaining to the 2 realms. By the time he finished reading the entire record, 7 days had passed by in a flash.